Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal. See playlist for other chapters and novels. Join now our Telegram channel now and enjoy exclusive early access. t.me/blood_immortal_official. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 81. Wang Tong finally made a move. At this time, the conferred godlight curtain was extinguished just in time. This is a seamless trap. All for this knife. A thumb wide, 1 finger long, crystal-like jade, almost transparent knife, seems to come through time and space. The cold chill makes people tremble from the soul. The piercing murderous aura hits Xiao Chen's whole body. The small but bright blade is about to touch his chest. Unless it is a god, there is no way to avoid it. Death was so close to Xiao Chen, although he was unwilling, but he was powerless. At this moment he couldn't change anything, he could only wait for death to come. Ding! A crisp vibrato sounded above Ju Peak. Xiao Chen was knocked out by a huge force. The crystal-clear flying knife unexpectedly fell to the ground, did not penetrate him, but the huge impact force flew him 6 or 7 meters away. For a split second, everyone held their breath, and there was no sound between the two snow peaks. It is unbelievable that Xiao Li's flying knife, which has never missed a shot in the legend, actually fell down after touching the enemy and did not penetrate the enemy's body. Xiao Chen stood up straight. His upright body erupted with dancing divine flames, but he was unharmed, and he was aroused with an angry fighting spirit. Xiao Chen stared coldly at Wang Tong in front of the phantom. The anger in his eyes was undisguised. This carefully prepared knife almost killed him. He rubbed the holes in the skirt of his clothes, and touched a few pieces as smooth as jade, which were the shattered colored jade shells left by Kiki after his birth. He never thought that at this critical moment, he would actually block the legendary Xiao Li Fidao. Xiao Chen wanted to keep these colorful jade shells for Kiki not because of their brilliance, but because they were the only things Kiki's parents left for him, and because he wanted to show them to knowledgeable people in the future, so as to figure out Kiki's origin. Xiao Chen never imagined that the 7-colored jade shell was so hard that it blocked the invincible Xiao Li's flying knife. I really don't know how KK broke out of the shell back then. It is many times harder than fine iron. It wasn't until then that people woke up to the noise on the opposite snow peak, which was really unbelievable. Xiao Chen's divine flames were beating outside his body, his murderous aura was soaring to the sky. He pushed forward step by step. The snow peak under his feet seemed to tremble. One after another big cracks spread from under his feet in all directions, and the edge of the snow peak made a click, click sound, and countless pieces of ice fell down, rolling down the peak. Although there are hundreds of phantoms, Xiao Chen still locks on Wang Tong, the successor of flying knives, and Kai Luo, the magician, and a blazing blade that seems to communicate with the blue sky strikes forward, sweeping away all the phantoms attacking in front, and shattering many real spiritual attacks. At the same time, the three masters launched a real joint attack, trying to get rid of Xiao Chen. Yan Qingcheng swooped down, the purple light was dazzling, tearing towards Xiao Chen. Kai Luo, a genius illusionist, moved together with hundreds of shadows, besieging Xiao Chen with many phantoms. And Wang Tong, the descendant of the contemporary throwing knife, even made a stunning second knife. A little starlight illuminates the peak, becoming the most eye-catching and terrifying focus in the world. The more dangerous the situation is, the calmer Xiao Chen is. All actions are so simple and direct, straight to the point. The right hand is like a knife. Straight up, a beam of light shoots up into the sky, and directly collapses Yan Qingcheng, while the Big Dipper light curtain trembles violently, leaves the body, sweeps all directions, shatters all the light rain formed by spiritual power, and then slashes heavily on the eye-catching point of knife light. Zheng, the legendary flying knife has been hit. In the gorgeous sunlight, the crystal-clear Shu Xiaoblade fell to the snow, and the light curtain of the Big Dipper also shattered and dimmed. If the first time was a lucky escape, then this time when they were prepared to attack and kill each other, Xiao Chen's keen sense of spirit appeared, and he even blocked the legendary throwing knife. Everyone on the opposite mountain peak exclaimed. The magic skill of flying knife has been passed down for many years, and the power displayed by different people is different. However, whether Xiao Chen can block the third and fourth stabs, is hard to speculate. After the fierce confrontation, there was a short period of dead silence, followed by a battle between dragons and tigers. This will be a life and death showdown between masters of the sixth heaven. Xiao Chen's situation is very pessimistic. Unless he finds the right opportunity to escape, he will inevitably pay a heavy price in a big battle. However, seeing his killing intent, no one really knew whether he would fight or retreat. Roar! At this moment, a huge roar came from behind Zhu Dian, as if the sky was shaking and the whole snow mountain was trembling violently. A gigantic monster climbed up from the back of the snow-capped mountain. It was 50 meters long and looked like it was carved out of ice. Its whole body was as white as jade, but it looked extremely terrifying. The head of a unicorn dragon, the body of a wolf, and the tail of a giant crocodile were all covered with gleaming white scales. This is a snow jade dragon. Most people have recognized this legendary savage dragon. It lives in a cold place and is extremely lethargic. It spends most of the year in deep sleep. According to legend, gods dare not disturb its sleep, otherwise it will be frozen for thousands of miles, tearing apart all obstacles, and even gods will not be spared. The great battle that took place on the top of the snow awakened it, which was sleeping in the ice cave under the snow mountain, and it was furious at this moment. Roar! Shui Yulong roared, the sound was deafening. A 10-meter-long huge sharp claw, shining with a cold light, slapped it fiercely. Kai Luo, Wang Tong, Yan Qingcheng, Xiao Chen all quickly avoided. Boom! Accompanied by the sound of landslides and ground cracks, a corner of the snow-capped mountain peak was actually snapped off by that terrifying dragon claw. This is really shocking. Roar! Shui Yulong roared up to the sky, shaking people's ears so that their ears were about to burst, and many people blocked their ears in pain. If it was too late, they might pass out on the spot. Boom! There was another violent slap, and the sharp giant claws tore down fiercely. Shui Dian couldn't bear it, and another corner was cut off by the blow. At the same time, the endless ice and snow all around became turbulent, and there seemed to be monstrous snow waves surging near the snow peak. This is really too terrifying. This behemoth is so fierce that it has the potential to destroy the world. The people on the opposite Shifeng all started to flee. The noise was unbearable. Everyone wanted to get away from here as soon as possible. The genius illusionist Kai Luo, the successor of Xiao Li's flying knife Wang Tong, the peerless Yan Qingcheng, and Xiao Chen also don't care about the battle of rebirth and death. They are right beside Shui Yulong, and they are the most threatened. They all increase their speed to the limit and want to stay away from this peerless savage dragon. Kai Luo soared into the sky, Wang Tong jumped off the snow peak, Yan Qingcheng also wanted to soar into the sky, but the pair of light wings behind her could not keep her flying in the air, and she was swept down by the snowy waves stirred up by the Jasper dragon, falling in the direction Xiao Chen was running. Yan Qingcheng pointed like a knife, and a bright purple light shot down, trying to penetrate Xiao Chen's back. With a cultivation base of Xiao Chen's level, even in the chaos, he can sense the danger around him, and he reacted immediately. The body was like a floating shadow, leaving an afterimage on the spot, avoiding the sharp blow, and before the falling Yan Qingcheng stabilized his figure, Xiao Chen coldly hit the strongest blow. This is definitely an unreserved killing style. The dazzling light makes people unable to look directly at it. 7 brilliant waves of energy rolled up thousands of piles of snow, like turbulent waves hitting the shore, rushing towards Yan Qingcheng one after another. This is the power of the sixth heaven in the realm of metamorphosis. Yan Qingcheng was unable to dodge, and was directly blown away by the blazing energy waves, coughing up blood continuously from his mouth, and his beautiful jade face was extremely pale. Without any mercy, Xiao Chen jumped off the snow peak and left in the dust. So what if she is the #1 beauty in the world? Xiao Chen will never be soft because of this. The enemy is the enemy, and will not be shaken for any reason. The snow jade dragon roared and shook the sky, it shattered the top of the snow, and the endless snow waves, like 10,000 horses galloping, covered the sky and covered the earth, and the white snow waves buried Yan Qingcheng deep at the bottom of the snow mountain. The snow-white savage dragon rushed to the snow peak ahead, chasing and killing those fleeing cultivators. This was a big change, and no one thought that there would be such a terrifying wild dragon here. Amidst the roar, the snow peak was also shaken into an avalanche, which was extremely powerful, but luckily those cultivators reacted quickly enough and escaped from that area long ago. Only 7 or 8 people unfortunately died under the snow waves. Xiao Chen didn't flee with the crowd, he chose a flat terrain, turned into a beam of light and rushed into the deep snow. Instead of running for his life, he might as well hide quietly. Outside, the roar of the dragon pierced through the sky, and the roar of the avalanche rumbled for a long time. It wasn't until the panicked shouts faded away that the dragon's roar subsided, and then disappeared completely. The world gradually became quiet, and Shui Yulong seemed to have returned to the ice cave again. It was not until an hour later that Xiao Chen rushed out of Shenzhou, silently staring at the snow peak that had been lifted off the top of the mountain. One can imagine how violent Shui Yulong was just now. The dragon race is indeed a race that makes gods tremble. Even though they have lost their previous great supernatural powers, their powerful bodies are also unrivaled in the world. There is no end to cultivation, and he still has a long way to go. When will he have the strength to compete with such a race? Chapter 82 Snow Mountain Ice Coffin. Many cultivators fled back to the lush mountains and forests, and their moods were quite different from when they came. If they hadn't been separated from Shui Yulong by a snow valley and had a certain buffer time to escape, it would not have been as simple as only 20 or so people were buried in the snow sea. Xiao Chen searched this snowy area for a long time, but found nothing special, and then headed into the depths of the snow mountain to find KK and the 3 skeletons. 2 hours later, Xiao Chen found their tracks. When he climbed to a snow peak, Xiao Chen was dumbfounded. In addition to finding 3 skeletons repairing in the ice cave, he also found a snow lotus that could be the size of a house, and KK was lying on it and sleeping soundly. The whole snow lotus is shining brightly, and the brilliance like water waves is slowly flowing. The indescribable magic makes the place full of aura and rosy clouds. The whole snow lotus looks like it is carved out of divine jade, dazzling under the sunlight. And KK was sleeping soundly in the lotus heart of the snow lotus. People have to sigh that this little beast is really miraculous. It is no accident that such a spiritual thing can be found every time, and it must be related to its spirituality. This little thing is really at ease, not afraid of wild beasts taking it away at all. It sleeps so sweetly. I really don't know how it survived in Dragon Island where wild beasts are rampant. Xiao Chen walked over gently, touched it with his hand, and a surprising thing happened. A soft radiance filled KK's body surface, protecting it inside. Yeah, the snow-white little beast was actually talking in its sleep, turned over after being touched by Xiao Chen, and fell asleep again, without being awakened at all. This really left Xiao Chen speechless. Xiao Chen didn't disturb it anymore. He sat on the snow peak and began to adjust his breath. Although he was ruthless to the enemy, he treated Xiao Chen in a different way to the person beside him. He doted on this little beast. This time, thanks to KK's colorful jade shell, otherwise he might have died under that flying knife. The Reincarnation King and the others found that Xiao Chen had returned. The light of the soul in his eyes flickered, and then it seemed to have disappeared, and they began to practice quietly. In this way, Xiao Chen had been meditating in Shifeng until the middle of the night, and only then did he feel refreshed and completely recovered to his peak state. He had absorbed the essence of a few dragon eggs in the past, resulting in a much stronger vitality than ordinary people. Otherwise, this fierce battle might seriously damage his vitality. The strong life essence allows Xiao Chen and others to have 2 lives. If he meets an opponent with similar cultivation, he can completely fight to the death with the opponent. Anyway, his vitality is strong, and he can completely consume the opponent to death. The stars are dotted, and the night is like water. It wasn't until the middle of the night that Kiki got up with sleepy eyes. When she saw Xiao Chen, she blinked her big eyes in a daze, and then, as if remembering something, she stretched out a small animal claw and pointed at its bulging belly in pain, and then pointed at Xiao Chen with dissatisfaction, as if silently complaining. Xiao Chen was amused all of a sudden. This little thing must want to eat snow lotus, but now he is guarding this kind of spiritual essence but can't eat it. It really makes him extremely depressed. I don't think I need to call you a little fierce beast in the future. You can be called a treasure-hunting beast. You can find such a king of snow lotus. You are really the nemesis of spirit. Kiki seemed a little dissatisfied, and waved the little beast claw at Xiao Chen angrily. Then he turned over, uncovered several crystal lotus petals in the lotus heart, and dug out a fist-sized jade object from inside. It was brilliant like a star. This was the real snow lotus heart, which moved Xiao Chen. Kiki salivated greedily, wanted to eat but dared not. Ha ha, Xiao Chen was teased and laughed, and finally said, "Let me save it for you first, and you can enjoy it slowly when your belly subsides." KK looked at him suspiciously, finally nodded dejectedly, broke the lotus heart into 2 halves, asked Xiao Chen to keep 1 half for it, and gave the other half directly to Xiao Chen, and at the same time waved the little animal claws to warn Xiao Chen not to think about its half. Xiao Chen couldn't help laughing, and said with a smile, "You little beast still has some conscience, and you haven't forgotten me. Don't worry, I'll keep it for you, and I don't want half of it." After going to Kiki's hometown, Xiao Chen felt that he was very close to the little thing, and he was almost able to keep it by his side. "Kiki, let me tell you how to make your chubby belly go away." KK's big eyes lit up immediately. "If you want to do it, you need your treasure tree." Didn't you see the treasure tree being integrated into my body last time? Starting today, you need to try to integrate the sacred seedling into your belly so that it can absorb the excess nectar of life. Otherwise, I don't know how long it will take for the nectar to be completely absorbed by you. KK's big bright eyes stared round, and then shook her head vigorously while clutching her chubby belly, which meant that she would not do it even if she was beaten to death. It seemed to say that he would never plant a tree on his stomach. It doesn't matter if you don't want to, so much nectar of life is absorbed by yourself, and the benefits are huge. However, you have to hold back your appetite for a while, and don't always think about eating delicious food. Kiki immediately became listless, climbed up the snow lotus angrily, and continued to fall asleep. Kiki, don't bother to go to sleep, it's time for you to repair the precious tree, and plant your precious tree on the snow lotus. Xiao Chen carried KK into the ice cave, and planted the precious tree on the snow lotus. In the night-like water, the brilliance of the snow peak flowed. On the palm-high sacred seedlings, on the trunk, like a horned dragon, a black jade leaf, a white jade leaf, and a jasper leaf immediately glowed with dazzling brilliance. In the early morning, Xiao Chen and the others left here, because looking out in the morning glow, they found that there seemed to be a dilapidated ancient palace on a snow peak in the distance. When I landed here, I found that it was not an illusion, there is really a ruin here. The broken ancient temple almost collapsed. It was originally a magnificent palace. At this moment, only 1 or 2 ancient temples are still standing, but they may fall down in the wind and snow at any time. Nothing was found here, it seemed to be just an ancient ruin, far less strange and terrifying than the holy mountain. With the ancient temple as a mark, let's bury the dragon egg here temporarily, and it will be convenient to find it later. Xiao Chen wanted to stop absorbing the essence of the dragon egg. Yesterday, facing the morning glow, he had an epiphany, which gave him a new understanding on the way of cultivation, and he wanted to start another journey of cultivation. Anyway, the dragon egg will not run away, although he can come here to take it out from time to time. At the same time, there might be a glimmer of expectation in his heart, maybe 1 or 2 little dragon kings could really be bred. Xiao Chen never expected that when the ice and snow were shaken away and the frozen soil was dug up, an ice coffin was dug underground. This is really a big discovery. Could it be the burial place of the ancient gods? Thinking of this, he quickly shattered the surrounding frozen soil, allowing the ice coffin to float on the snow mountain. Under the sunlight, one can clearly see that there is a complete piece of human skin in the transparent ice coffin, wrinkled and wrinkled, which seems to be left by an extremely old person. This is too evil. There was only an old skin and no corpse, which made Xiao Chen feel a little chilly. However, it was impossible for him to be frightened by this, and gently pushed open the lid of the ice coffin, revealing the human skin inside. When he picked it up, he found that except for a gap from the head to the abdomen, the rest of the human skin was almost intact, without any damage. Even the sparse snow-white hair that was about to fall off and the gray eyelashes remained. For some reason, Xiao Chen felt that this place was extremely gloomy. Even though the sun was shining brightly, it seemed that it had lost its due warmth, and the glow seemed pale. Involuntarily, he thought of the cicada shell. This layer of old skin is like the shell that insects shed, and it seems to have similar characteristics. Xiao Chen didn't stop there, and dug a piece of frozen ground nearby. To his surprise, he actually dug another ice coffin, which was only 2 meters away from the first ice coffin. Xiao Chen took a deep breath. Isn't this really a strange burial place? If this is the case, isn't the dilapidated palace here the Yin Temple? The second ice coffin broke through the ground, and inside was still an extremely wrinkled old skin. This time, Xiao Chen felt chills down his spine, because he found that it was too similar to the 2 old skins. After he flattened them together, he found that their skins were exactly the same. They looked the same. Moreover, after careful comparison, Xiao Chen felt that his scalp was a little numb, because he found that the birthmarks on the 2 old skins were not the slightest difference, they were exactly the same. How could this be? Even twin brothers wouldn't be so similar. Xiao Chen felt more and more strange here. A spine-chilling burial. It was impossible for him to stop because of this, and continued to dig the frozen soil. As a result, the third ice coffin was dug out. He took a deep breath. Instead of looking at the third ice coffin, he cracked the ice layer and continued digging into the frozen soil. However, he excavated all the strata near the ancient temple, and he never found the fourth ice coffin. The places where the 3 ice coffins were unearthed were no more than 2 meters apart, and they were arranged very neatly together. It seems that there are only 3 ice coffins. Xiao Chen lifted the lid of the third ice coffin, and he was stunned. The old skin in the coffin was the same as the first two, and the 3 birthmarks were also the same. How so? Xiao Chen felt that the place was very cold. Why there were 3 identical human skins, but no corpses? Could it be that the flesh and blood inside was eaten by something? Calm down and watch by yourself. Suddenly his expression froze, because he found an important clue. In the 3rd ice coffin, he found a few drops of blood, which seemed to have dried up not long ago. Chapter 83 Encounter. There are also some black bloodstains inside the 2 old skins. One can tell that they have a history of at least 100 years, and have experienced a long period of erosion. Of course, the exact number of years is not something that Xiao Chen can accurately guess. As for the human skin in the 3rd ice coffin, the blood dripping in the ice coffin is black and red with a hint of color. For a practitioner like Xiao Chen, it is easy to guess that the time will never exceed half a month. This made Xiao Chen immediately feel a chill, and the hairs all over his body stood on end. He carefully looked inside the human skin, and found that the blood stain inside was indeed black and red with a hint of color. It should not be long. He observed carefully, and obviously found that the 3rd old skin was relatively soft, with an oily luster, and it seemed that it had just been shed. Suddenly, Xiao Chen finally discovered the most crucial clue. The middle finger of the 3rd old skin was a little cracked. Apart from some bloodstains, there was actually a piece of delicate new skin the size of a fingernail stuck there. This is so strange and terrifying. Xiao Chen's hazy guess earlier seems to have come true. Unstoppable, he once again thought of the scene of cicadas and insects shedding their shells. If there is no guess, it seems that there is an old ghost who is constantly reincarnated. Xiao Chen looked around subconsciously. There was not a trace of human presence on the cold snow mountain, but he felt that there seemed to be a pair of extremely cold eyes watching him in the dark. Illusion, it must be an illusion. Xiao Chen calmed down his mind, dispersed his consciousness, and paid attention to the movement around him. The snow mountain was completely silent, there was no sound, only the cold breath flowing in the snow mountain. Xiao Chen felt that this place was not a good place, so he reburied the 3 ice coffins as they were, erasing all traces, and then called KK who was wandering around the ruined hall and the 3 skeletons to leave here quickly. After practicing in this snowy mountain for 5 days, Xiao Chen found no other abnormalities. He buried the dragon egg among the snowy peaks and decided to leave here. It is not normal for a snowy mountain to appear in the hot and humid Dragon Island, but he discovered some strange things here. He felt that this place seemed no safer than a mountain forest where wild beasts were rampant. Walking through the world of ice and snow, and heading out of the snow-capped mountains, Xiao Chen suddenly heard faint, rumbling sounds from the distant snow-capped peaks, like an avalanche, and then he saw a purple light rising into the sky. Although they were far away, Xiao Chen recognized it at a glance. It seemed to be Yan Qingcheng. That snow-capped mountain was where the battle took place 5 days ago. Yan Qingcheng was beaten by Xiao Chen that day and was buried deep in the avalanche caused by Shui Yulong. She was destined to perish in the 1,000 waves of snow, but she never thought that she would rush out from under the deep snow 5 days after being buried. Although they are far apart, the pair of purple light wings behind Yan Qingcheng are still dazzling. They are no longer as transparent as they were in the battle that day, but now they are like 2 pieces of purple divine jade carved out, which is indescribably miraculous. Not only did she not die, but her cultivation had clearly broken through, which surprised Xiao Chen deeply, and he remembered the skill practiced by Yan Qingcheng, the immortal devil art. The legend is indeed true. After the people who practice this technique are on the verge of death, once they successfully pass the death barrier, they will surely improve their cultivation. Yan Qingcheng actually broke through the original realm in the death realm, and came back to life after 5 days of feigning death under the deep snow. This made Xiao Chen feel awe-inspiring, and the immortal demon art really deserves to be one of the heavenly arts that are astonishing in the past and the present. Yan Qingcheng, whose cultivation has reached the realm of the 6th heaven, is definitely a formidable opponent. However, Xiao Chen is confident that he is not afraid of anyone at the same level, because he has even defeated the space spirit who is known as the king of the same level. Xiao Chen was as quick as a fleeting shadow, leaving afterimages among the snow peaks, wanting to rush over and leave Yan Qingcheng behind. However, after Yan Qingcheng rushed out of the deep snow, she spread out a pair of purple light wings like the wings of an elf, and flew directly to the outside of the snow mountain as fast as lightning. She didn't stay in this area for a moment, and she didn't find Xiao Chen who was approaching. Finally leaving the snow mountain, looking back at the white world of ice and snow, feeling the warm wind in front of him, Xiao Chen felt very unreal. There was almost no buffer zone between the cold and the heat, and the lush mountains and forests were so close to the white snow, it was unimaginable. Xiao Chen and the others entered a vibrant area. The melodious singing of birds, the refreshing fragrance of flowers, and the roar of beasts, compared with the dead forest behind them and the snowy mountains farther away, they really added a lot of vivid atmosphere. There are still more than 20 miles away from the settlement of many cultivators, and there is a beautiful mountain peak with aura in front of it. It seems that there are few wild beasts there, and it is indescribably peaceful and quiet. It can be seen from a distance that flowing springs and waterfalls hang down from the mountain, and the water mist evaporates to form a rainbow-like light. Xiao Chen came to the foot of the mountain, and found that this place is really a good place, with exotic flowers in full bloom, yao grass on the ground, vines around it, and beautiful trees. It is a pure land for cultivation, and he met an acquaintance here. Among the flowers and trees, a sapphire-like small lake is calm and unwavering, with indescribable beauty and tranquility. Space Spirit Master Lu Mu still looked sick, his handsome face was somewhat pale, and he was quietly sitting by the lake fishing. As soon as Xiao Chen stepped here, he immediately felt the abnormality of the space, as if an invisible liquid was flowing, making it difficult for him to walk, and overlapping shadows appeared in the space, and different scenes from far and near were intertwined in front of his eyes. There seemed to be multiple space traps here, making people struggle like falling into a quagmire, the harder it is to move. Xiao Chen's power of the 6th level of the mortal state burst out in an all-round way, like a sharp sword bursting out with a blazing light, tearing the heavy ropes, smashing all the space traps in this area, and restoring it to its original calm and beautiful appearance. By the small lake, Lu Mu turned his head and said, "It seems that the rumors that you killed on the top of the snow mountain a few days ago are indeed true, and even now I can still feel the bloody aura on your body." Xiao Chen smiled, sat calmly not far from Lu Mu, and said, "Everything is just for self-protection. I want to live, but someone forces me. I can't stop killing with just killing." "You have broken through to the 6th level of transformation." Lu Mu's pale face gradually turned red, and he said, "How about we fight again?" His eyes were a little eager, as if he was looking forward to this battle. "You have also entered the realm of the 6th heaven." Xiao Chen was a little surprised when he found out, and then he shook his head and said, "Space spirits are known as the kings among cultivators of the same level. I really want to break this legend again, but now I can't fight with you." "Why? Some people always want to force me into death. Before all dangers are removed, I must always be at my peak state. You and I have already entered the 6th heaven of the mortal realm. If we beat you in a real fight, I am afraid it will not be as peaceful as last time." The sickly Lu Mu laughed and said, "You are really conceited. Are you sure you can defeat me? Space spirits are kings at the same level, this is not a lie." Xiao Chen lightly tapped the surface of the lake with his hand, and immediately the small lake surged violently. The water surface seemed to be boiling, and thousands of lake fish were shaken out of the water. He said very confidently, "Since I was able to break the legend last time, I can still do it this time." All of a sudden, all the lake fish jumping out of the water were fixed in the air, motionless, and were all imprisoned by Lu Mu's space power. He looked back at Xiao Chen and said, "You are indeed very strong, but I am also very confident. I really want to fight you. However, since you are in danger, I don't want to make things difficult for you." At this time, Kiki not far away was attracted by the lake fish fixed in the air. It seemed to find it very interesting. When it saw thousands of lake fish being put back into the lake by Lu Mu, it stretched out a small snow-white animal claw, gesticulating in the air, and the lake fish leapt out of the water again and began to dance all over the sky. After 3 or 4 seconds, it fell into the water with a plop plop. This surprised Lu Mu. For the first time, he began to seriously look at the little snow-white beast following Xiao Chen, and said in surprise, "This is..." Xiao Chen spread his hands and said with a smile, "I don't know much about it either. It doesn't seem to have any offensive power, but it is enough to protect itself." Kiki was very dissatisfied with this evaluation, waved the little beast's claw angrily, and then ran towards the 3 skeletons in the distance like a joy. "How did you break into the 6th heaven? You know, it took a lot of effort for me to break through this time." Lu Mu asked. Xiao Chen didn't hide anything, and told the truth about the enlightenment in the morning glow, expressing his feelings at that time. Lu Mu thought about it, sighed, and said, "It seems that our experience is similar. After I was defeated by you that day, I practiced harder in front of the sacred monument, but I almost lost my temper. Later, I retreated to this peaceful place to cultivate and calm my mind. Unexpectedly, I broke through the original realm." He also explained his experience in detail. Although they are practitioners of different departments, their spiritual understanding is completely connected. After some exchanges, both of them feel that they have gained a lot. From the current situation of Long Island to the difference between a spirit man and a curse master, the two talked a lot. Are spiritualists, supernatural powers are innate, and there are various forms of supernatural powers. Curse masters are only powerful in spirit and do not have spiritual power themselves, but they can cast similar energy attacks by chanting ancient incantations. I have never believed that their incantations were obtained after communicating with the gods, but it is true that no energy can be found in their bodies. All the energy is summoned from the outside at the moment of the attack. There are signs that it seems to really come from the gods they believe in. Finally, the two talked about the current situation of Long Island. Chapter 84, Xiao Chen, don't you want to start a killing spree? Xiao Chen smiled faintly, and said, I don't like to be passive, why should I wait for them to kill me? I will take the initiative to crush all dangers. Lu Emu's body really didn't seem to be very good. Amidst the rapid coughing, his pale face turned red, and after calming down for a long time, he said, you really are a dangerous person. There is no way. They forced this. I just want to live. Instead of passively waiting for the danger to approach, it is better to take the initiative. Lu Mu has gradually understood Xiao Chen's character. He is a decisive person who will never hesitate to make a decision. Do you need my help? You want to help me? This surprised Xiao Chen. Now his enemies are not good, and helping him in this situation would be risking his life. Let's take care of each other. Maybe I will need you to save my life soon. Although Lu Mu looked a little sick, his real cultivation was extremely terrifying. He was known as the king of his class, who could threaten his life. Xiao Chen looked at him puzzled, and said, could it be that on this Dragon Island, there are some enemies of your life and death? I don't know, I only have a feeling that there seems to be a pair of cold eyes watching me in the dark. This feeling is very bad, and I can't find out where he is. Lu Mu spoke slowly, and things seemed mysterious. Okay, let's take care of each other. Lu Mu didn't go into details, and Xiao Chen couldn't ask further, but the two had already decided to join forces. Lu Mu smiled, but he was a little cold, and said, I haven't killed anyone for a long time, why don't I help you completely solve the troubles tonight? Xiao Chen also laughed. He could see that Lu Mu was by no means a sloppy person. This somewhat sickly but very handsome space spirit warrior was the kind of person who would do nothing if he didn't make a move, and would definitely be extremely ruthless if he did. They were not in a hurry to act, and while adjusting their own state for a few days, they were also paying attention to the situation on the island. On the third day, Lu Mu went out to find out the situation and came back and said, I saw Dugu Sword Demon. Obviously Lu Mu valued this person very much. Dugu Sword Demon, Xiao Chen's heart moved. He had visited Monk Yijun 2 days ago, and asked who were the terrifying masters on the island. Monk Yijun once said that Dugu Sword Demon must be one of them. He has the strongest attacking and killing sword skills in the world. Rumor has it that Dugu Sword Demon's bloodline is unusual, and he is the descendant of Dugu Chubai, an outstanding man through the ages. He practiced swords by the sea since he was a child. At the age of 15 he was able to cut through 9 great waves. After the age of 20 he had few rivals among his peers. He was an extremely terrifying person. Monk Yijun is very suspicious that Dugu Sword Demon may be the main behind the scenes of the last major purge. Let me figure out whether the time is right. Lu Mu recalled and thought for a while, and said, Dugu Sword Demon entered the center of Dragon Island very early, but after practicing in front of the sacred monument, he returned to the seaside to practice swords. It seems that there was a big purge at that time. I'm afraid, your friend Monk Yijun's suspicion is true. Both of them have already realized that if the speculation is true, then this time Dugu Sword Demon will enter the depths of Dragon Island again, and there will probably be big disturbances in the near future. When Xiao Chen and Lu Mu were discussing, a charming woman came here. It turned out to be a stunner in the Pink League who was second only to Lu Ruyan in beauty, named Li Yun. The beautiful face is full of foxy temperament, the eyes are flowing like water waves, seductive, and although the lips are not painted with lipstick, they are very bright and ruddy. The neck is as white as a swan's neck, and the waist is slender, not enough to hold, and it swings slightly with the lotus steps. Those slender jade legs are very straight. The Pink Alliance is well informed, and they actually found Xiao Chen here. At the first moment, Lu Mu hid his figure, and then retreated. The Pink Alliance wants to further form an alliance with Xiao Chen, and Li Yun is willing to stay by Xiao Chen's side to help him. With such an important person coming in person, it can be seen that the Red Fan Alliance really values Xiao Chen. Li Yun was graceful and coquettish. After euphemistically explaining her intentions, she approached gracefully like a willow in the wind, and naturally sat beside him. What can you help me with? Xiao Chen sat quietly by the lake, unmoved. Li Yun smiled and said, I can provide you with very valuable news. Xiao Chen was unmoved, and said lightly, really? Li Yun laughed lightly and said, you think our news is worthless? Xiao Chen shook his head and didn't speak. He didn't dare to be interested in this kind of organization that swayed from side to side and fought for other forces. The situation on Dragon Island is complicated now, and everyone is in danger. Only when you are strong can you have the confidence. I will provide you with information, and I hope you can help me cultivate. How can others help you improve your cultivation? It depends on your own hard work. Li Yun brushed her beautiful hair and said, I know you must have a special cultivation method, otherwise why would your cultivation base keep breaking through? I know you can't teach me all your secret methods, but it's okay to ask me some tricks. Xiao Chen immediately understood that the Red Fan Alliance not only valued his strength, but also valued his cultivation methods. Xiao Chen stood up and said with a smile, it's lunchtime now, please cook some wild game for me and KK first. Well, by the way, roast some lake fish. Also, Kemu likes to eat fruit, so prepare some. Li Yun frowned. The other party was so casual and asked her to chop firewood and make a fire to barbecue. Most likely, she didn't have the sincerity to cooperate. Xiao Chen, when will you teach me some secret methods of cultivation? My exercises are more difficult to learn, and they are really not suitable for women to practice. What's so difficult to learn? You must be perfunctory. It's true, for a woman, if she wants to practice this kind of magical skill, she must first swing her sword from the palace. Xiao Chen picked up KK who was sleeping soundly and strode away. Nonsense. Why did the woman leave the palace? Infinitely close to a man. Li Yun was angry and hated, stomping her feet and gnashing her teeth on the spot. Rejected. Lu Mu sat on an ancient tree and looked at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen smiled casually, didn't care, and said half-jokingly, she came with a purpose that is not pure. This kind of fragrant bait can be eaten, but it needs to be carefully removed from the hook. Lu Mu Dao. According to what I have learned in the past few days, except for the leader Lu Ruyan who did not show up in person, all the women in the Pink League have had ambiguous contacts with the strong men of the major alliances, and this Li Yun seems to have followed Dugu Sword Demon. If that's the case, I'd better keep it at arm's length. The two began to plot the upcoming operation. In the end Lu Mu hid away. Xiao Chen called Li Yun over, and said with a smile, now I need Miss Li's help. Li Yun can be said to be charming, with a pair of eyes that are seductive and charming, and she smiled coquettishly, how can I help? Ms. Li, please go back to the place where the cultivators gathered and tell everyone that within 10 days I will destroy the natural alliance created by Arid. You don't believe in our Pink Alliance? No, I trust you very much. Such news should be kept secret, but why do you want to spread it through us? Some people need to be deterred by absolute force. I want them to understand not to mess with me. Do you want to make an example of others by doing this? That's right. After some conversation, Li Yun left gracefully. Soon the news spread, which was undoubtedly a strong declaration of war. Recently, Xiao Chen caused a series of disturbances. In a big battle in the Snow Mountain, he showed an unstoppable momentum. Even the strongest among the young powerhouses already had to pay attention to him. The gathering place of many cultivators was full of excitement. Many people were looking forward to this battle, and even more looking forward to the battle between Xiao Chen and Yan Qingchang, Kai Luo, and Wang Tong after this battle, because it was an unavoidable battle. There was no need to wait for 10 days. When night fell on the first day, Xiao Chen and Lu Mu had already started to prepare for action. Lu Mu, put this on the chest and the back of the heart. Xiao Chen handed some pieces of Kiki's colored jade shells to Lu Mu. Lu Mu took it and felt the hardness of the shattered colored jade shell, and said, are you afraid that I won't be able to guard against Xiao Li's flying knife? If you fight head-on, I believe you can guard against it, but if he attacks secretly, it's really hard to guard against. If it wasn't for the colorful jade broken shell protecting my chest last time, I might not be able to stand here and talk to you. Xiao Li Fidao is really as scary as in the legend. Although he is no longer the Xiao Li of the past, this skill of controlling a sword is still terrifying no matter who uses it. Lu Mu is not an arrogant person who doesn't know what is good or bad. He listened to Xiao Chen's opinion, and protected his vitals with a few pieces of colored jade shells. Xiao Chen woke up the drowsy Kiki and said, don't run around after waking up, wait for us here. Kiki blinked her big eyes in a daze, nodded subconsciously, and then fell asleep again. Xiao Chen said to the three skeletons, you don't need to take action tonight, but follow us from a distance. If we are exhausted, you will carry us back. The three skeletons nodded in understanding. Xiao Chen and Lu Mu decided to let go of a fight, and now everything is ready. The stars are dim tonight, and the darkness covers the mountains and forests, making it look extraordinarily gloomy. Like a light smoke, Xiao Chen quickly rushed towards the gathering place of cultivators. Lu Mu was even able to walk in the air, leaving only a shadow in the air, and three skeletons followed them from a distance. Their first surprise attack target tonight is Tree People Valley. Xiao Chen decided to uproot Zhao Liner's power first, and then the natural alliance created by Yared and Kaio. The rumors released earlier were just for the sake of making a fuss. When these side threats are removed, it will be a good time to fight masters like Yan Qingcheng and Kai Luo. It was a bloody night. Two masters, Xiao Chen and Lu Mu, appeared in the Saran Valley alliance. The two started a thunderous killing, and the screams pierced the tranquility of the night. In the darkness, a cyan light curtain emerged around Lu Mu, covering hundreds of square meters of space. He is the absolute master of space. Wherever it passes, all obstacles will be crushed. When the cultivators in the Valley of the Trees were imprisoned in this space, life and death were completely controlled by Lu Mu. The meteor light rain formed by the spiritual power in the space was as beautiful as gorgeous fireworks, but it was deadly. Several cultivators had no power to fight back, and they were all pierced through. In this battle, Xiao Chen barely made a move, and Lu Mu completely resolved the battle. The Space Spirit Master deserves his reputation as the supreme cultivator, and he reaped the lives of everyone like a god of death. In the end, Xiao Chen didn't find Zhao Liner, and learned from a member of Saran Valley that Zhao Liner seemed to sense the danger approaching, and had already left alone on the day she returned from the Snow Mountain. The screams alarmed the surrounding alliance, and the area quickly became noisy. Lu Mu's clothes were stained with traces of blood. At this moment, his smile was very cruel, and he said, "I think Yan Qingcheng and the others are guarding the natural alliance. I don't know if they will come here after they know the situation. This space spirit is usually weak and sick, but if he really wants to fight, he will be ruthless." At this time, there was a sudden commotion in the dark night, screams were heard continuously from a distance, and then the killing sound broke through the sky. On this dark night, there was a great commotion in the gathering place of cultivators. Xiao Chen and Lu Mu looked at each other, they thought of Dugu Sword Demon in unison. Now, a big showdown between alliances took place. This is a game between the behind-the-scenes promoters, and they actually chose to act tonight. The sound of killing was loud, and it was obvious that many alliances were involved. This was a big melee between different camps. This was a premeditated killing, and the big reshuffle happened again. The regulations restricting the alliance have long been invalidated. The behind-the-scenes forces have contacted enough forces to start a new round of cleansing. The target must be their respective enemies. This is a duel between the behind-the-scenes pushers. Some ambitious behind-the-scenes pushers will further increase their power, while some behind-the-scenes pushers may be completely defeated. Xiao Chen, this is an opportunity. I know. There was a cold light in Xiao Chen's eyes. On this night of screaming and killing, they rushed towards the natural alliance with their superb cultivation. On the road, they inevitably encountered many alliances fighting in melee, and the two killed each other along the way. Xiao Chen snatched a long knife, the blade glowed like a horse, pierced the dark night sky, and anyone who dared to charge towards him fell into a pool of blood. Lu Mu was equally terrifying. The curse masters and spirit men in the air seemed to have met their nemesis, and no one could stop him. They killed all the way to the Natural Alliance, and this place has already become a battlefield, and the Natural Alliance has been completely cleaned up. There are no bodies of Arid or Kaio. After searching carefully, Xiao Chen began to chase along the bloodstains. It really was a frenzied night. Almost all the alliances in this area participated in the war. This was a tragic showdown. The shouts of killing were deafening, cultivators were fighting everywhere, and the weak could only be slaughtered. The dazzling sword lights, violent spiritual attacks, and terrifying spells illuminated this dark night. Chapter 85 Bloody Night. There is no trace of the strong barbarian young man Kaio, but Xiao Chen and the others found Yared, who was seriously injured and dying. When they found him, he seemed to be dying. I didn't expect. He smiled miserably, looked at Xiao Chen and said, "I actually died in the hands of Dugu Sword Demon." After saying these words, Arid died. It's a bloody night, kill for fear, kill for life, it's a frantic night. The killing didn't stop until dawn. Except for the main players of the several major factions in the game, almost all other alliances in this area were also involved in this storm. If you don't kill people, you will be killed. Everyone fell into a state of madness. The pungent smell of blood permeated the mountain, and the blood mist almost dyed the forest red. And just at dawn, something even more terrifying happened. Hundreds of huge poisonous bees flew out from the nearby valley, each of which could be as big as a sheep. They came following the smell of blood, and crazily attacked many cultivators, which caught everyone by surprise. There were more and more huge poisonous bees, and everyone was forced to flee to the dead forest, because in the end the poisonous bees overwhelmingly descended, covering the sky like a dark cloud. The dead on the ground were quickly eaten up by the giant bees, leaving behind bones. Everyone fled into the dead forest. It was strange to say that none of the overwhelming poisonous bees dared to break into the dead forest. The killing started again, and the final victory had not yet been determined between the major camps. However, at this moment, another extremely terrifying thing happened. Whenever blood splashed on the ancient trees in this forest, those thousand-year-old trees seemed to be turned into demons. Huge branches hung down and strangled all the people nearby, corroding people in a terrifying way, and slowly merging into the branches, leaves and tree trunks. This is really frightening. No one could understand why such a horrible thing happened. Although the strong can shatter ancient trees when danger is approaching, many seriously injured died in the demonized ancient trees. At this point, the cultivators no longer dared to let blood splash on the ancient trees. Everyone felt that this dead forest was creepy, and these ancient trees seemed to be ghosts with souls. Now, everyone finally understands why no wild beast dares to approach this place. There is great danger here. The killing was still going on, and everyone was gradually approaching the sea of dead bones, and finally they were about to rush out of the dead forest. The battle immediately became fierce, and there was no need to worry about blood splashing. Xiao Chen, Lu Ruyan, who turned all sentient beings upside down, was still charming even though she was fleeing, and quickly hid behind him. There were nearly 10 cultivators chasing after her, and there was no doubt that they were all chasing and killing her. You want to use us as a shield? Xiao Chen couldn't help feeling murderous, seeing that the 10 people had already rushed in front of him. No, I swear that as long as you can save me from this catastrophe, I will definitely be rewarded. Right now, Xiao Chen couldn't afford to say more, because the 10 people had already been killed, and he and Lu Mu were not given a chance to explain, and they tried their best to attack and kill. However, it was obvious that these people had kicked the iron board. These were 2 cultivators of the 6th heaven, and they were not something they could deal with. After a brilliant sword light flashed, Xiao Chen directly slashed and killed the 2 of them. And Lu Mu was even more straightforward, trapping everyone in the space under his control, and including Xiao Chen in it. The cyan light fixed everyone except Xiao Chen, and he shouted, "Xiao Chen, hurry up, I can't last long." In this strange enclosed space, it was difficult for the curse masters, spirit warriors, and warriors to move. Xiao Chen seemed to be chopping vegetables. After the flash of the incomparable sword light, everyone was cut in half, and the blood kept gushing. The cyan light dimmed, and all the corpses fell on the real ground, and the gurgling blood stained the ground red. This is a perfect cooperation, Xiao Chen sincerely admired. Space spirits really live up to their reputation. Lu Ruyan was obviously shocked. The 10 masters were killed in an instant. The strength of the 2 men in front of her made her a little startled. In the end, she came to Xiao Chen with lotus steps, and said with a coquettish smile, "What I said is true, I decided to give you myself as a gift." Lu Ruyan was born beautiful, her waist was slender and soft, like a willow in the wind, and her pair of slender jade legs were straight and sexy, which can be said to turn all living beings upside down in her peerless charm. However, Xiao Chen and Lu Mu regarded her as nothing. In this extremely dangerous turmoil, their hearts were as firm as iron, and they could not be shaken by any external temptation. Lu Ruyan followed Xiao Chen closely, fearing that the 2 would throw her off and escape. The killing is still going on. Xiao Chen and Lu Mu finally met Yan Qingcheng and others when they entered the Sea of Dead Bones. Yan Qingcheng, who carried the purple divine wings, Kai Luo, the genius illusionist, and Wang Tong, the successor of Xiao Li's flying knife, obviously did not suffer too much impact. After all, they were all masters of the 6th heaven, and not many people could hurt them. The moment they found Xiao Chen, the 3 of them rushed over immediately. When enemies meet, there is no need to say anything, only life and death. Yan Qingcheng's beauty is peerless, a pair of radiant purple divine wings set her off even more. Just like an angel with purple wings descending on the mortal world, she draws a beautiful trajectory in the air, turning into a purple light and rushing towards Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen was not afraid. The conferred godlike curtain shrouded him, the Big Dipper shone brightly, he seemed to be wearing an ancient holy armor, and the blazing light from the long knife in his hand was like a huge lightning bolt going up against the sky, tearing towards Yan Qingcheng. The dazzling purple light collided fiercely with the blazing blade glow, bursting out into a gorgeous and colorful light. Yan Qingcheng rushed into the sky, standing in the void, and Xiao Chen also raised his head and stared at her coldly. On the other side, Lu Mu was so crazy that he trapped Kai Luo and Wang Tong at the same time, launching a terrifying spatial spiritual attack. Xiao Chen rushed over without hesitation. In Lu Mu's space, Kai Luo's illusion was obviously a little out of order, and Wang Tong's movements were also much slower, and he refused to release the throwing knife for a long time. Xiao Chen was not affected by the slightest impression, and almost caused serious damage to the two of them when he came up. But at this time, Yan Qingcheng also rushed over, and Lu Mu's confinement finally failed. After all, even if he was strong, he couldn't confine the three masters at the same time. A fierce battle broke out. Xiao Chen and Lu Mu fought against the three masters. The beauty Lu Ruyan knew that she couldn't help, so she avoided the battlefield. During the battle, Xiao Chen finally saw Wang Tong's face clearly. In the previous battle, Kai Luo's many illusions blocked him, and he couldn't see clearly the true face of the flying knife heir who brought him to the brink of death. Wang Tong looks ordinary, but has an outstanding temperament. His whole person is like a blade, giving people an extremely sharp feeling. The battle had already started for a quarter of an hour, but Wang Tong didn't throw a knife all the time, and only used melee moves to fight back. Obviously, he was looking for a chance to hit with one blow. Under the restraint of the space spirit man, Kyla, the illusion spirit man, obviously couldn't fully exert his illusion, but the attack of real spiritual power was not affected at all, turning into a meteor shower and raging across the sky. And Yan Qingcheng is like a ray of purple lightning, crisscrossing the sky and the earth, and the purple rays of light cast down, almost submerging Xiao Chen and Lu Mu in it. After a fierce battle for a quarter of an hour, amidst the many phantoms under Kai Luo's cloth and the purple lights cast by Yan Qingcheng, Wang Tong finally made a move. A thumb-wide, 1 finger long, crystal-clear jade, almost transparent knife, as if tearing the void, completely broke through Lu Mu's space blockade, and shot straight at his heart. Lu Mu and Xiao Chen were dealing with Yan Qingcheng and Kai Luo's mad attack. Wang Tong's timing was so precise that it was too late for Lu Mu to imprison them with spatial spiritual power. Ding! Xiao Li, who was known as invincible, fell to the ground with a flying knife, but Lu Mu was also knocked out heavily. He opened his mouth and spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. His face was very pale. Although Xiao Li Fidao was blocked by the colored jade shell, the saber energy contained in it rushed into his body. Lu Mu is a space spirit master, and his physical strength is of course far from being comparable to Xiao Chen's, so he was injured by the sword energy. Lu Mu, Xiao Chen turned into a ray of light and rushed over. And at this moment, Wang Tong's second throwing knife was shot, and it was also a magnificent knife. Pointing at Xiao Chen's back heart. Although Xiao Chen was worried about Lu Mu, the more critical he was, the more sensitive his body and mind became, and he sensed the approach of the legendary Xiao Li Fidao. He made an extremely bold movement. The conferred godlike curtain suddenly shrank, and all of it converged on his left hand. The Big Dipper set off his palm brightly. Xiao Chen grabbed the crystal-clear flying knife without looking back. Zheng, the legendary Xiao Li Fidao was caught by Xiao Chensheng in his hand. Lu Ruyan, Kai Luo, and Yan Qingcheng were all stunned. The Big Dipper in Xiao Chen's palm shone brilliantly. The sound of piercing the sky came out again, the flying knife tore through the void, and 3 consecutive cold lights shot at Xiao Chen. Clank! Xiao Chen grasped all the 3 bright sword lights, which dealt a huge blow to Wang Tong. His face was extremely pale. When the 3 swords were shot just now, his energy seemed to follow, and he spit blood and flew away. Concerned about Lu Mu's safety, Xiao Chen threw down the broken flying knife and hurriedly helped Lu Mu up. How are you, Lu Mu? It doesn't matter, there is a mouthful of blood that should have been spit out, and the other mouthful was forced out by myself. Lu Mu shouted loudly at this point. Space confinement. Xiao Chen, make a move. Kai Luo and Yan Qingcheng, who launched fierce attacks, slowed down in an instant. Xiao Chen slashed out without any hesitation. With all his strength, Kyla broke free from the space confinement and soared into the sky, but was still swept by the dazzling blade light, leaving behind a lot of blood, and he fled away without looking back. The purple light shot down by Yan Qingcheng was also shattered, and she was severely injured by the unparalleled sword light. She also tried her best to soar into the sky. But at this moment, the moment Xiao Chen exercised his profound arts to the extreme, besides holding the Big Dipper in his left hand, a bright star lit up in his right hand, just like the Emperor's Way star. Xiao Chen waved his right hand, and the star in his palm turned into a shining sword, and he slashed towards the sky without any hesitation. The blazing light was farther than the magic attack of the Curse Master, and the sword energy that soared into the sky cut off Yan Qingcheng's purple divine wings, causing her to fall down. Yan Qingcheng was seriously injured and fell to the ground. The bright purple light wings behind her were shattered by Xiao Chen's sword light like exquisite porcelain. She showed a painful expression, spit out several big mouthfuls of blood, and then fell to the ground. With the Big Dipper in his left hand and the Emperor Star in his right hand, Xiao Chen felt that his hands were filled with endless power. Lu Mu coughed and stood up. Lu Mu, are you really all right? It's okay, you'll be fine after 2 or 3 days of cultivation. In the distance, Lu Ruyan was even more surprised. She never thought that Xiao Chen's fighting power was so unparalleled, and she walked over briskly. Xiao Chen turned his head to look at the pale but beautiful Yan Qingcheng, and said, I declare that you will be our slave from now on. Chapter 86. Blood floating in the world of upheaval. Yan Qingcheng, the posture of sinking fish and wild goose, the appearance of closing the moon to shame the flowers, and the beauty of the city and the country, she is a real peerless beauty. At this moment, her eyes are full of anger. She is the proud daughter of a generation. It is more uncomfortable to ask her to be a female slave than to kill her. She glared at Xiao Chen extremely angrily. A prisoner must have the consciousness of a prisoner. Xiao Chen ignored her after finishing speaking, and began to check Lu Mu's injuries. The peerless beauty Lu Ruyan laughed lightly, and said, Xiao Chen, if you don't worry, you can let me train her and take care of her so that she can become a qualified female slave. Okay, I'll leave it to you. At this moment, the chaotic killings that lasted all night have gradually subsided, and the duel between the several camps seems to have decided the winner. Although some cultivators saw Xiao Chen and Lu Mu, no one came to provoke them. They had just seen the terrifying fighting power of Xiao Chen and Lu Mu. Of course, if the leaders of several major camps are here, it is hard to say whether Xiao Chen and the others can escape. It was early morning at this moment, but the sun hadn't risen yet, and a cloudy wind was blowing inexplicably between the sky and the earth. The originally hot island was indescribably cold at the moment. Woo, like a ghost whistling, the ear-piercing whistling sound from the dark wind, especially in this sea of bones, seemed even more eerie and terrifying. Afterwards, a yellow wind blew up between the sky and the earth. The breath was still extremely cold, but the sky and the earth were all a dead yellow. The yellow wind is a harbinger of great evil, a sign of the devil rushing out of hell. Of course, that's just a rumor. But right now it is indeed unusually dense. All practitioners look up to the sky. Boom! At this moment, yellow clouds envelop the sky, unexpectedly splitting down black lightning bolts, making this place even more sinister and eerie. Finally, the heavy rain poured down. It turned out to be yellow rain. There was a curtain of water between the sky and the earth. The heavy yellow rain looked so strange, it was like yellow corpse water. The difference between the heaven and the earth makes everyone feel a little palpitating. Lu Mu suddenly said, if I remember correctly, today seems to be Ghost Festival. After entering the longevity realm, Xiao Chen didn't know what year it was, nor did he know the year of this world at all. Yes, the stunner Lu Ruyan's voice was trembling. Ghost Festival, how can it be taken seriously? Xiao Chen didn't quite believe it. Lu Mu nodded and said, yes, of course it's unbelievable. I just saw the abnormality of the world and the surrounding white sea of bones, so I suddenly thought of it. However, just after their words were finished, amidst the deafening thunder and the torrential rain, an extremely strange thing happened. An extremely magnificent and tall ancient city emerged from the sea of bones in the rain. Not only Xiao Chen and the others saw it, but all the cultivators saw it. For a moment, everyone held their breath, and couldn't believe their eyes. This ancient city in the rain is too magnificent, exuding a majestic momentum. The city wall is 100 meters high, taller than any other big city on the mainland. And full of the vicissitudes of time, the ancient city wall does not know how long it has gone through, as if it came from ancient times across time and space. The huge city gate with a height of 100 meters was wide open, facing many cultivators. Even if it was raining heavily, the rain curtain could hardly cover up the scene inside the city gate. Teams of soldiers in the city, like lifeless soldiers, were practicing in the rain in a uniform manner. It was difficult to tell which dynasty they belonged to with the ancient armor. Later, someone exclaimed, because someone had already recognized those armors, which were exactly the same as those recorded in the ancient books. Some were the ancient armors of the heavenly soldiers, and some were the ancient armors of the yin soldiers. In the ancient city, there seemed to be huge beast shadows swaying, resembling Tyrannosaurus and Lion King Dragon, but the distance was too far away, and it was impossible to see clearly due to the rain curtain. Someone said in surprise, inlaid on the top of the city gate is Everyone couldn't help looking up, only to see a huge embedded on it, and many people couldn't help but let out exclamations. Extremely like the legendary Buddha's body. Buddha, Lao Tzu and other powers have disappeared for endless years, how could his body be embedded there? It seems to have been smashed. It seems to want to smash down the gate tower. ... Everyone felt a sense of panic. This ancient and mysterious giant city looked so strange in the rain. The heavy rain like yellow corpse water poured down, the heavens were filled with a gloomy atmosphere, the ancient city under the rain curtain reappeared in the world like a ghost city from hell, thick black lightning tore through the void, and fell continuously from the sky, the deafening sound was like a roaring ghost, this was an extremely terrifying scene. The yellow sky gradually darkened, and the miserable yellow clouds completely turned into black clouds. Although it was already morning, it was darker than midnight at the moment. The heavy black mist seemed to be haunted by ghosts, and the color of the lightning turned into a miserable blood red. The bleak red is extraordinarily glaring. In the tumbling magic cloud, the terrifying blood light is continuously torn down, like a roaring river of blood rushing from the sky to the ground, reflecting the darkness and horror of this dark world. The white sea of bones is full of yin, but it is not as good as the strange ancient city located in the Sea of Bones. The sacred monument in the center of the Sea of Bones has disappeared. Maybe it is the reason for the appearance of the ancient city, which makes the area of the Sea of Bones seem to be much larger out of thin air. At this time, the smell of blood suddenly entered everyone's noses, and someone exclaimed, "Blood, it's blood." In the dark sky, bright and glaring lightning danced wildly. It could be clearly seen in the lightning that the raindrops falling all over the sky turned bright red, and the smell of blood was pungent. There was a blood curtain hanging between the sky and the earth, and the rain turned into blood. This was so terrifying and frightening that it made everyone on the scene gasp. Everyone felt their scalps go numb, their backs shivered, and the hairs all over their bodies stood on end, causing a tremor from the soul. The ancient city with a wall as high as more than 100 meters not only exudes the atmosphere of ancient vicissitudes, but also looks extremely austere after being bathed in blood rain. It is like a huge beast that broke through the sky from ancient times, and its ominous aura is breathtaking. Coupled with the huge gun embedded on the gate tower, it is even more shocking, it looks like the legendary Buddha's magic weapon. It seemed to have been slammed on by life, huge cracks appeared on the ancient city walls around the asterisk, and the wall on the front gate suffered heavy damage. Obviously, someone once attacked the city with guns. However, she was imprisoned there by the evil black wall. It seems to belong to the Buddha, and it is not difficult to imagine who the attacker is. If the guess is correct, then things are pretty dire. Let the compassionate Buddha fight so hard, one can imagine that he must have been really angry, but in the end he even lost his magic weapon, one can imagine how evil the ancient city is. After all, according to the legend, the Buddha was a man with the same magical power as Lao Tzu. His cultivation was astonishing in the past and the present, and there were few rivals in that era. Buddha and Lao Tzu have disappeared for endless years, could it be related to this ancient city? The dreaded question is on everyone's mind. The bright red rain of blood was still pouring down, and through the wide open city gate, one could clearly see those heavenly soldiers and dark soldiers wearing ancient armors, they were stained with blood, and their shadows were vivid, extraordinarily terrifying. It's terrible, I can't stay here anymore. The voices of some cultivators trembled, and they retreated quickly, leaving the Sea of Bones and entering the dead forest, but these people screamed just after entering the dead forest. Ah, the dark sky, the bleak lightning, the bright red rain of blood, and the screams, all of these are intertwined, so terrifying and terrifying. Tree ghosts, evil spirits. Those people yelled in horror. All the ancient trees are alive and turned into evil spirits. The incomparably luxuriant ancient wood forest in the rear is now a gloomy forest. All the ancient trees are dancing wildly in the rain of blood. Human faces appear on the ancient tree trunks, as if possessed by a ghost. All the branches are like ghost hands, tightly strangling the body of the cultivator, slowly corroding the cultivator and absorbing them into the tree. Only some powerful cultivators escaped back, and dozens of people died in the ancient forest. Xiao Chen and Lu Mu glanced at each other, they both felt a little chilly, what happened today was so strange that it was incomprehensible. Lu Rian, the stunner who turns all living beings upside down, puts away her obsession at this moment, her voice trembling. Today is Ghost Festival, the legend is true, the gate of heaven and earth is wide open, the breath of life will be the weakest, and the monarch of death will come to the world. Nonsense, have you ever seen such a scene in the longevity continent? Lu Mu coughed slightly, his face was a little pale, his body was really not very good. The scarlet blood rained down, but it was hard to get onto Xiao Chen's body. The invisible protective energy blocked all of this. He stared quietly at the ancient city, and said, all the dragons who were able to fight against the gods were sealed back then. I'm afraid it has something to do with this ancient city. I think so too. Lu Mu nodded in agreement. The fighting among the cultivators in the Sea of Bones had long since ceased, and they were divided into several camps facing each other far away, while Xiao Chen and the others belonged to stragglers, and were not within the sphere of influence of those big forces. The appearance of the ancient city and the blood rain made those behind the scenes startled and had to conspire to talk again. In the end, all the people scattered in the Sea of Bones gathered together, and the main characters seemed to have reached an agreement to let go of all prejudices and stop fighting. The figures were full of people, and this time, the fighting between the behind-the-scenes forces led to a big melee, resulting in the deaths of more than 200 people. There are only more than 400 people left on Long Island, and more than 300 of them are concentrated in this Sea of Bones. No one dared to act rashly. Facing the unknown, everyone felt the great danger. Everyone could only gather together and watch the ancient city nervously. In the distance, a lonely figure walked towards Xiao Chen and the others through the blood curtains. His steps were flimsy and staggering. He turned out to be a real monk. The moon-white monk's robe had already been dyed blood red, and a faint light filled his body. The blood all over his body was obviously not poured by the blood curtain between heaven and earth. Yijun. Xiao Chen went up to meet him. With a sad expression on his face, Yijun said in a trembling voice, my senior brother died, and his death was terrible. He was shattered into 18 pieces by the 3 swords. After saying these words, he couldn't hold on any longer, and his body swayed and fell to the ground. Xiao Chen hurriedly supported him, and 2 divine lights shot out from his eyes. An idiot monk died like this. Xiao Chen was silent for a while. Don't be sad, it's good that you survive. He comforted monk Yijun like this. An idiot monk's cultivation had at least reached the 5th level of the mortal state, and had even broken into the 6th level of the mortal state, but he was chopped into pieces by 3 swords. That person's cultivation was really terrifying. This time, the big duel between the behind-the-scenes forces led to the loss of many masters. Except for the escape of the monk Yijun, all the other members of the Bodhidharma alliance were killed. Is that person Dugu Sword Demon? Xiao Chen asked. I only saw a man covered in black mist. He smashed my senior brother, killed my Bodhidharma alliance, and wounded me with a sword from the air, but I didn't even see his true face. Speaking of this, the expression of the monk Yijun was very different from the past. The Beidou light curtain emerged from Xiao Chen's left hand, and streams of divine light poured into monk Yijun's body, stabilizing his injury. The reason why I survived was because someone rescued me. When the monk Yijun recalled the scene at that time, his expression was a little excited, and he said, a woman is in the hazy colorful mist, and she, unexpectedly used the law of God. What? Lu Mu from behind was extremely startled, and quickly stepped forward to ask, what you said is true. She used the power of time. I saw it with my own eyes. She used the legendary divine rule to slow down the terrifying figure in the black mist to the point of snail-like speed, as if she had fallen into a quagmire. Chapter 87 My new book, Shading the Sky, has been uploaded, and the homepage of the Longevity World can be accessed directly. My new book, Shading the Sky, has been uploaded. New books on the first day are not counted in the search system. At the end of this chapter, there is a through train, or you can enter by clicking my pseudonym Chendong on the homepage of Changshani, or from the through train on the homepage of Changshani. Chendong's new book, Shading the Sky, has been uploaded. Please support brothers and sisters. ISBN 1,735,921. Description: in the cosmic depths where coldness and darkness coexist, 9 huge dragon corpses pull an ancient bronze coffin, which exists from ancient times. This is an extremely shocking picture captured by space probes in the desolate universe. Did Kowloon pull the coffin back to ancient times, or came to the other side of the starry sky? A vast fairy world, grotesque, mysterious and endless. Blood boils like a volcano, passion surges like a vast sea, and desires are endless like an abyss. Climbing the road to heaven, singing songs, and covering the sky with your fingers. Chapter 88 My new book, Perfect World, has been uploaded. Brothers and sisters are invited. My new book, Perfect World, has been uploaded. Brothers and sisters are invited to watch it. Introduction: a speck of dust can fill up the sea, a blade of grass cuts off the sun, moon and stars, and the sky is turned upside down with a snap of your fingers. All the heroes rise together, thousands of races stand everywhere, all the saints fight for hegemony, and the sky and the earth are in chaos. Oh dear Lord, who domains the fate of this world? A young man walks out of the wilderness, and everything starts from here. It is different and exciting. Please old friends to watch, the link is as follows. Chapter 89 My new book, Holy Ruins, has been uploaded. My new book, Holy Ruins, has been uploaded. If you are short of books, please come here. Different and exciting, calling all brothers and sisters. Members click, recommend tickets, bookmark, ask for everyone's support. Grateful. Chapter 90 The Dragon Clan of Upheaval restores its supernatural powers. Lu Mu said to himself, in the legend, space spirits are respected and overwhelm all practitioners of the same level. But there is a premise, that is, there will be no practitioners who control time energy. The laws of time spirits are called gods, and practitioners who are higher than her first layer may not be her opponents. Xiao Chenlai didn't know much about this world yet, but he understood everything from their words. A cultivator who can control the power of time seems to have the potential to dominate the world. Monk Yijun did not see the final result of the battle between the woman who mastered the rules of God and the terrifying man shrouded in black mist, because at that time the two men moved the battlefield while fighting. In the dark sky, lightning bolts like rivers of blood continued to rain down, and the rain of blood continued to fall. The blood on the ground had covered the feet and smelled fishy. Anyone who saw this kind of scene would feel their scalp tingling. Monk Yijun felt a little surprised when he saw Yan Qingcheng, a sluggish and beautiful woman who was guarded by Lu Rian not far away. She is already my slave girl. Xiao Chen mercilessly hit this beautiful woman. HMPH. Yan Qingcheng let out a cold snort heavily, but there was nothing she could do now. It was impossible for her seriously injured to escape. And at this moment, there was a commotion not far away, and under the blood curtain, white bones climbed up from the ground, their eye sockets were extremely hollow. My God, what's going on here? Is the monarch of the dead world really going to rule this world? Horrible. Everyone was shocked, and some even started to tremble. This place was originally a sea of bones. The appearance of the ancient city and the rain of blood made people gradually ignore the endless bones on the ground, but at this moment the sea of bones was no longer calm. Fortunately, not all the horrible skeletons stood up, only the intact skeletons stood upright, facing the ancient city in the bloody curtain. However, the bones of those savage beasts as large as hills also began to tremble, as if they might wake up at any moment. It's not safe here, we have to find a way. Xiao Chen scanned the evil place. It's just that the endless dead forest cuts off their escape route, and the mysterious and terrifying ancient city lies in front of them, and they really can't escape from this place. What are they doing? Lu Rian, the peerless goblin in charge of guarding Yan Qingcheng, looked a little pale at the moment, and stretched out her jade finger to point at the commotion in front of the crowd. While many people felt terrible, there was actually a group of people marching towards the ancient city, as if they wanted to go deep into the ancient and frightening city. They are going for the sake of the Buddha. Lu Mu coughed softly, his eyes shone strangely, his handsome but sickly cheeks seemed to be flushed with excitement. Buddhas. Monk Yijun looked at the ancient city from a distance, his gaze was deeply attracted by the huge Buddhist vessel, and his whole mind seemed to have drifted away. Greed seems to be inherent in human beings. The group of cultivators had already approached the ancient city. Facing the groups of yin soldiers and heavenly soldiers wearing ancient armor in the city, they were a little frightened, but they still couldn't restrain their desire to seek the Buddha treasure. Fortunately, the soldiers in the ancient city regarded them as nothing, as if they hadn't seen them at all. No one dared to enter the ancient city. The black city wall made of unknown material was shining with a strange black light, and the team of cultivators was trying to climb up. The ancient city seems to have gone through endless years, and there are many pitted sword marks and claw marks on the black walls, just for those cultivators to use their strength to climb. Not long after, they climbed up the ancient city wall more than 100 meters high, less than 10 meters away from the statue of Buddha on the city gate tower. The huge body can be the size of a house, deeply embedded in that wall, and huge cracks spread far away. Finally, someone climbed up the huge gap and slowly approached the asterisk, but at this moment, bright red blood suddenly flowed out from the cracked gaps. Ah! The person who reached the top first screamed and fell down, and his body underwent a terrifying change in the air, turning into bones in an instant, and all flesh and blood disappeared instantly. At the same time, the black ancient city wall gleamed with black light, and the strange light engulfed the rest of the people, screaming one after another. They were even more miserable than the first person. Through the rain curtain, they could clearly see that their bodies were torn apart, then completely shattered, and finally turned into a little light that merged into the wall, and everyone was completely wiped out. At this time, the Buddha's hair made a burst of metal trembling, it was constantly vibrating, and at the same time it emitted a gorgeous light, a peaceful breath resisted the strange black light, and then the ancient city wall slowly calmed down. With the appearance of the Buddha's light, the skeletons that climbed up near the ancient city gradually lay down on the ground again, and the trembling giant skeletons also stopped shaking. Roar! It's just that a shrill howl that tingles the scalp resounded in the depths of the ancient city, which changed everything. Not only the skeleton bones struggled to stand up, but also the huge bones of the wild beast stood up. The shrill whistling sound that made people tremble in the soul disappeared after only a while, but the disaster seemed to be unstoppable. In the endlessly distant primeval forest, there were bursts of roaring sounds, and the ground trembled, as if there were endless savage beasts charging in this direction. At the same time, the skeletons on the ground stood up from the feet, sides, and backs of many cultivators, and the White Death Army made people feel chills down their spines. Those smaller white bones are okay, but the huge beast bones like a hill are like a huge millstone being ground. If a cultivator is stepped on by them, they will immediately turn into a pulp. It can be clearly seen that these dead bones are not undead creatures, they are all shrouded in a real evil spirit, without any soul fluctuations, they are real dead things, but they can move, giving people an endless and terrifying sense of unknown. The impact of the bone army immediately caused many casualties, and some cultivators were directly crushed by the huge animal bones tens of meters long. The terrified screams in this sea of bones are endless, and it is difficult for everyone to keep calm. Fear is surging in everyone's heart, and the sound of beast roars in the distance is quickly approaching here. Not long after, roars like thunder rushed to the vicinity, and more than 20 huge dragon shadows could be vaguely seen, floating in the sky above the dead forest, spraying dazzling beams of light across the blood curtain. There was a sound comparable to thunder, which made everyone's ears buzz, and the terrifying dragon technique instantly wiped out a large piece of dead bones in the sea of bones. All the cultivators were terrified, and they could clearly see the Tyrannosaurus, Lion King dragon, 8-armed dragon, Stegosaurus and other powerful dragons, all of them were floating in the air. Isn't the dragon clan suppressed? Why did they recover their supernatural powers and want to kill this area? While everyone felt fear, their hearts were full of doubts. The combat power of the dragon clan is unmatched in the world, and their magic skills are also unparalleled in the world. The rays of divine light that came through the sky were invincible and nothing could be taken back, and the army of white bones continued to be wiped out. Many cultivators were completely annihilated before they even had time to scream. Roar! The sky dragon is roaring, the ground is shaking, the blood rain is pouring down, the terrifying divine light is constantly bombarding, pieces of bones are crumbling, and the strange black light emanating from the ancient city is getting stronger. The dragon clan has recovered their great supernatural powers today, and the huge dragon shadows in Yuenkong have increased from 20 to 30, and the number is still increasing. So many powerful savage dragons that can compete with the gods gather together, and their fierce aura is unmatched in the world. However, they seem to be taboo, and they dare not approach the ancient city, but keep bombarding here from far away. For all cultivators, this is like the end of the world. All the upheavals today were beyond the expectations of the behind-the-scenes practitioners. If they had known about this disaster, they would never have launched a big showdown, and they would never have killed here. Now everything is over. At this moment, this place has become a purgatory, and the cultivators suffered heavy casualties. Xiao Chen was shocked to find that the three undead creatures, King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Reincarnation, made a few funny gestures at him, and then they approached the ancient city gate. There is no way to retreat. The dead forest blocked the return route. Xiao Chen hesitated a little, and made a bold decision, and said to Lu Mu and Monk Yijun, "We have no retreat, now enter the ancient city, there may be a glimmer of life there." "Okay, I agree." Lu Mu nodded in agreement. The area they are in has not yet suffered the devastating attack of the dragon clan, but the terrifying divine light falls not far away from time to time, and will soon spread to them. That's the only way. Monk Yijun also agreed. How can we do that? It's the capital of Yin. It's a dead city where the ruler of the dead world lives. If we go there, we're going to kill ourselves. Lu Ruyan's face had already turned pale, and she was greatly frightened. "We didn't force you." Xiao Chen was the first to rush towards the dead city after saying these words. Lu Mu followed closely behind him, and so did Monk Yijun. "Crazy, you are crazy." Lu Ruyan stomped her feet, but a terrifying divine light fell not far in front of her, and a huge black hole that could not be seen to the bottom was blasted out, which immediately made her speechless in shock, and hurriedly chased Yan Qingcheng down. "Xiao Chen, you can't leave me behind, I gave myself to you." Xiao Chen looked back at her, and said, "The so-called death has a glimmer of life left. I will not seek death. If you want to live, you can follow us. Why are you still taking her with you?" Speaking of this, Xiao Chen looked at Yan Qingcheng. Under such circumstances, it is not suitable to take such a prisoner. It is best to kill him immediately. The peerless beauty Lu Ruyan smiled charmingly. Isn't this your slave girl? I will train her well in the future so that I can dedicate her to you. Boom! Another dazzling divine light came down, blasting a huge deep pit not far away, making Lu Ruyan scream in fright. Xiao Chen snorted coldly. He didn't want to talk more about certain topics with this goblin. His eyes were shining brightly, and said, I authorize you, if Yan Qingcheng has any abnormalities, kill him immediately. Lu Ruyan released part of Yan Qingcheng's restraint, allowing her legs to have enough strength to keep up with everyone's speed. The few people rushed towards the dead city without any risk, and it was strange that all the divine lights were around them, and they didn't really hit them, as if they were deliberately driving them into the ancient city. Xiao Chen, Lu Mu, and Yi Jun glanced at each other for an instant, and they thought of something. While the dragon clan recovered their supernatural powers, their divinity was also awakened, and their animal nature was suppressed. Yes, their intelligence is activated, and they seem to want to force us into the city, using us as a questioning stone. Although they are aware of this, they have to rush to the dead city, because there may be the only hope for them to survive, especially if they are deliberately driven away by the dragons. Xiao Chen and the others had no danger along the way, and quickly rushed to the dead city. King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Reincarnation had already entered the city gate, and they were confronting the heavenly and yin soldiers in the city. Could it be, do you really want to go in? Lu Ruyan's voice trembled. However, the falling divine light immediately interrupted her words, causing her to scream. Chapter 91 The Terrible Dead City. Although they are far away, the dragon clan seems to be able to hear their words, and the divine light keeps falling on them, as if deliberately driving them away. Without any hesitation, Xiao Chen had already rushed to King Samsara, watching the soldiers in the dead city together with the three skeletons. There was a deathly silence, and the two parties seemed to be in a delicate situation. Blood rained, and those heavenly soldiers and yin soldiers exuded an ancient and vicissitudes of life, as if they had lived for endless years, as if they were ancient figures reappearing in this world. The divine light was dazzling, cut through the blood curtain, and fell towards the city gate. Xiao Chen had no choice but to finally take a crucial step. The heavenly and dark soldiers in the city had already stopped their drills, standing there like huge tombstones, looking at him coldly. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Xiao Chen entered the ancient city. The dragon clan's attack finally couldn't do anything to him. Those heavenly and yin soldiers in ancient armor didn't attack him. Lu Mu and Monk Yijun also followed in. Lu Ruyan turned pale, and escorted Yan Qingcheng to follow behind them, while the three skeletons cautiously came to Xiao Chen's side. A group of yin soldiers had extremely gloomy eyes. They all raised the ancient iron spears in their hands. Lu Ruyan's face turned pale immediately, but the yin soldiers did not make a move, and continued to practice in the blood rain, which made them heave a sigh of relief. They didn't dare to go deep into the dead city, and just stood quietly not far from the city gate. If it wasn't for the dragon clan blasting outside, it would be impossible for them to hide here. In the distance, the surviving cultivators saw a few people hiding safely in the dead city, and all of them started to rush here. The dragon clan did not embarrass them. It seemed that they wanted to give them a way out, and wanted to force everyone into the ancient city to find their way. Only more than 100 people survived in the dead city, and the rest were all wiped out by the dragon clan's bombardment. But at this time, the violent attack of the dragon clan turned from the bone land to the dead city, and the divine light blasted on the city wall, and many beams fell on the city and spread out. Everyone was affected again. At this time, hundreds of heavenly soldiers and yin soldiers near the city gate raised their ancient spears and iron daggers, and rushed towards the beam of light in the sky. The ancient weapons, which seemed to be rusty and damaged, resisted most of them after meeting those divine lights. Those divine lights could not hurt these heavenly soldiers and yin soldiers, but these hundreds of people were also shaken by the shock. Xiao Chen keenly noticed that the ancient city was emitting a strange light that soared into the sky, and the strange black light blocked most of the magic attacks of the dragon clan. Otherwise, I am afraid that these heavenly soldiers and dark soldiers would not be able to really block the great supernatural powers of the dragon clan. The dead city is really mysterious and terrifying. The fact that the dragon clan did not dare to approach this place probably explained all of this. Buddha. A long Buddha's horn sounded suddenly, giving people the feeling of endless vicissitudes. The Buddha's light on the gate tower soared to the sky, and the brilliance of the sky fell down. The heavenly soldiers and the dark soldiers hurriedly retreated. Huge waves trembled continuously on the ancient city wall, and an invisible sound wave seemed to be raging like a raging wave, pushing everyone into the depths of the ancient city streets. Except for Monk Yijun, no one at the scene could stay near the city gate, and even the hundreds of heavenly soldiers and yin soldiers had to wave their ancient weapons and keep retreating towards the rear. Buddha. Another Buddha's chant sounded, and the Buddha's light surrounded Monk Yijun. The Monk Yijun, whose monk's robe was stained red with blood, looked majestic. He sat cross-legged and meditated on the ground, clasping his hands together to salute the Buddha. In the Buddha's light, a true monk slowly floated up from the ground. He actually sat cross-legged in the void, and a huge Buddha statue appeared around him. The vast and vicissitudes of life came from the looming huge Buddha statue. From a distance, Monk Yijun was sitting on one of the giant hands of the ancient Buddha. Although the monk's robe was already blood-red, his whole body was ethereal as if the real Buddha had been reborn, with a peaceful and compassionate atmosphere. My Buddha is merciful, the low Buddha's name uttered from the mouth of the Monk Yijun. He was like enlightened, and his whole temperament changed greatly. The transcendence and refinement are the true portrayal of him at this moment. He seemed to have forgotten the past grief and the tragic death of his brother, and at this moment he was calm. Sitting quietly in the palm of the ancient Buddha statue, reciting the obscure ancient scriptures lightly, he closed his eyes and fell into a special Zen state. In the distance, everyone envied Monk Yijun's encounter. There is no doubt that it was the Buddha's magic weapon that made him perfect. No one knows how much benefit Monk Yijun has received, but the legendary gift from the peerless and powerful Buddha, even an immortal person will be very moved. In the distance, the roar of the sky-shattering dragon was temporarily calmed by the holy light of the Buddha's magic weapon, but it didn't take long for the barbarian dragon to roar and shake the sky again, and one after another dragon spells blasted towards the dead city like overwhelming the sky. Even though the sky above the dead city was shrouded in black light, a lot of divine light still rushed in, and all the heavenly and dark soldiers raised their ancient weapons to resist. Except for the Monk Yijun, who was safe and sound, the other cultivators were miserable. They were forced into such a mysterious and unknown ancient city full of terror. It was really a dilemma. It was Xiao Chen who was the first to run along the ancient streets towards the depths of the ancient city. Faced with the spells of the dragons, the gods would change color. Although the spells were infinitely weakened by the black light shining through the ancient city, they were not something Xiao Chen and the others could resist. Lu Mu and others followed Xiao Chen to run in the ancient street. At this moment, Yan Qingcheng cooperated exceptionally. She didn't resist at all. She and Lu Ruyan followed the few people in front and chased them down. The only way to survive was to stay away from the battlefield near the city gate. The people behind all rushed into the depths of the street after a while of hesitation. If they left there for a while later, everyone would be bombarded and killed by the dragon's spell. Those heavenly soldiers and dark soldiers also retreated, but they still didn't attack everyone. They were like stone statues without emotion. However, many cultivators gradually became uneasy, because they saw many bones on the street. Could it be that these people broke into the ancient city like them at the beginning, and died here inexplicably in the end? However, everyone had no way out, and could only wait quietly in the depths of the streets of the ancient city, waiting for everything to calm down. However, things did not calm down, but became more and more serious. The sound of the dragon's roar was gradually approaching, and it was as loud as the sound of the sky collapsing and the earth cracking. Many people with weaker cultivation bases could no longer bear it, and their faces were extremely pale. It can be seen that a huge dragon shadow appeared above the sea of bones, just outside the dead city. The coercion was as majestic as the raging sea rolled in, and the black light that penetrated the ancient city directly made everyone look like a flat boat in the stormy sea. The dragon clan seems to want to destroy this dead city. Although they have taboos in their hearts and dare not come down, the spells of long-range attacks are overwhelming. At this time, all the cultivators dispersed and fled into the streets and alleys of the empty dead city. They didn't care so much anymore. Regardless of whether there was any danger in the city, the most important thing right now was to avoid the bombardment of the wild dragon. The heavenly soldiers and the yin soldiers couldn't hold back anymore, and they all retreated towards the depths of the ancient city, waving their rusty and mottled ancient weapons. The dead city was full of evil spirits, and the blood flowed continuously in the streets. Coupled with the white bones, it was like purgatory reappearing in the world. Ah! A scream came from the depths of an alley, so shrill, as if he had been greatly frightened before he died, not far from Xiao Chen and Lu Mu. What's going on? There wasn't any spell attack from the dragon clan. Lu Ruyan's voice was trembling. Xiao Chen and Lu Mu didn't speak. They walked forward together along the ancient alleys. The surrounding buildings and city walls were like city walls, made of unknown materials. Their color was black and red after being infected by blood and dried up, but they shone with a strange black light. The alley became narrower and narrower, and it soon came to an end. The shrill scream just now was still lingering in an ordinary house, but another sound was more noticeable. Bang, bang, bang. Based on the feeling that it was the sound of gnawing, it seemed to be biting flesh and blood. They didn't know what kind of creature it was, and they didn't want to know in this situation. Lu Ruyan's face was pale, and she covered her mouth with force. Xiao Chen and Lu Mu looked at each other, and finally they chose to retreat at the same time, leaving the creepy old house. The dead city is really not a good place, it is full of unknown horrors and dangers. Ah, the screams sounded again not far away, and there were more than one place. When Xiao Chen and the others rushed over, they found that they all came from those ancient houses. On both sides of the street, there are densely packed old houses shining with dark lights, some are tall and grand, some are low and simple, and the layout is not very different from the layout of ordinary cities. The screams all came from the old house. Apparently, many cultivators hid in the old house when they saw that the spells of the dragon clan could not destroy the buildings in the city. No one knew how they died so far. However, Xiao Chen and the others heard the sound of cracking, crunching, before they shot out of the ancient house. Apparently, there were terrifying creatures devouring the body of the cultivator in the ancient house. This is a terrible thing. The people who entered the ancient city were considered the best among the cultivators, but they became food for others. Dang dang, clang, ... In the depths of the ancient street, there was the sound of metal clashing. Xiao Chen and the others saw two spirit warriors flying in the sky, manipulating the divine sword transformed from spiritual power to fight. In this situation, they are still fighting, which shows that the hatred is not small. After a scream, one spirit warrior was cut in half and fell into the air, while the other spirit warrior fled away. The two corpses landed in front of a mansion, and the tall blood-red gate creaked open. Xiao Chen clearly saw two gloomy blue lights shining through the darkness. They were a pair of gloomy and terrifying eyes. Immediately after a gust of wind blew past, the two corpses in front of the blood-red gate disappeared, and then the ancient gate closed with a bang, and there were bursts of crackling sounds behind the bloody gate. This was a terrifying thing that Xiao Chen and the others witnessed. Although they didn't see what kind of monster it was enough to shock them. It seemed that every ancient house had horrible people, beasts, or ghosts living there. What's that? Yan Qingcheng, who is crowned in the world, couldn't help showing a little fear, her beautiful eyes staring at the blood-red gate without blinking. Lu Ruyan did his duty, and taught Yan Qingcheng, you should take care of yourself. The dragon clan's spell attacks became more and more fierce, they even flew over the dead city, and continuously fell down with streaks of divine light. Some heavenly and dark soldiers were already wiped out by them. However, it seems that the dragons haven't tried their best to launch an attack. Judging from their offensive, everything seems to be still in the process of testing. The cultivators were inevitably affected, and some people died unexpectedly. Xiao Chen and the others kept dodging in the ancient streets. Soon they saw two masters fighting on a main road. A mysterious man covered in black mist was fighting fiercely with a woman shrouded in colorful clouds. Their battle was very special. A divine sword in the man's hand swept across all directions, and he looked down on the world and looked down on the world, and the space was distorted by his swinging the sword, forming a special domain around him, and he seemed to be a master in that area. And the woman in the rosy clouds is equally miraculous. The space covered by the hazy brilliance is so different. Even if the mysterious man's long sword breaks into it, it will become extremely slow, and gradually lose the invincible superpower. The space shrouded in light and mist seems to be an independent small world. Chapter 92 Seeing the God Monument again. There is no doubt that this must be the pair of strong men that Monk Yijun saw. They seemed to be mortal enemies, and they were still fighting to the death after entering the ancient city. The black mist and colorful clouds obscured their appearance, making it impossible to see their true faces. Only dim shadows could be seen. Sure enough, it's the power of time, it's the real divine rule. Lu Mu exclaimed. He could see that he was very excited, as if he really wanted to rush over to compete with that woman. Silently, a murderous aura suddenly approached. Xiao Chen suddenly turned around. His left hand was covered by the Big Dipper light curtain, and caught a cold light in an instant. The crystal bright blade was almost transparent, as beautiful as a work of art. It was Xiao Li Fidao. The battle ahead didn't let Xiao Chen relax his vigilance either. He immediately disintegrated the attack. With a slight movement of his wrist, the blade pierced through the void, and shot towards the sky. Puff! A string of blood sprayed down, and the wounded figure in the air fled away. Lu Mu was about to fly into the air, but Xiao Chen grabbed him and said, "Don't chase, your injury hasn't recovered yet, so don't make any mistakes." Wang Tong was actually taken into the air by Kai Luo. It can be seen that they really want to get rid of you and hurry up. However, you can collect some interest first. Lu Rian, the goblin, smiled coquettishly, and then supported Yan Qingcheng's chin, and said, "It's too wonderful to treat such a peerless beauty as interest. I think about what kind of type she will be tamed in the future. It's just the type of ice and fire. Normally it is like this, cold and lonely, pure like a saint, but once make her enthusiasm, like a hot goblin, make her coquettish and charming to the extreme, to the point where she looks charming and turns all living beings upside down." Yan Qingcheng let out a cold snort, and turned her head to the side forcefully. Her long black and beautiful hair flew through the air like a waterfall, and her beautiful face was full of anger. Although her skills were sealed, her stagnant skin still shone with excitement. If she hadn't been seriously injured, she might have broken through the seal like a fish caught in a net, and took a risky shot. Xiao Chen and Lu Mu next to each other looked at each other. Lu Rian, a peerless stunner, seemed to be more interested in this kind of thing than men, as if Yan Qingcheng was her taboo. Those explicit words made Xiao Chen and Lu Mu, who are men, a little uncomfortable. In the Dead City, the surviving cultivators not only have to avoid the bombing and killing of the Dragon Clan, but also have to guard against being attacked and killed by others. At this moment, dangers and crises are everywhere in the ancient city, and screams are heard from time to time. If everyone is exiled to a closed Jedi, it seems that the freedom of life and death can only be obtained by fighting hard on their own. Fortunately, those unknown people or ghosts did not take the initiative to hurt people in those ancient houses with scattered heights. Only the cultivators would encounter accidents when they broke in. There are still people who don't know why, breaking into the old house from time to time, and the shrill screams are particularly terrifying. When Xiao Chen and the others entered the central area of the ancient city, it was difficult for the Dragon Clan's spell attacks to reach here, and relatively speaking, their lives were not in danger. Although raids and killings still occur around them from time to time, compared to the devastating attacks of the Dragon Clan, these can be resisted. However, Xiao Chen had a bad feeling, and his intuition told him that there seemed to be evil spirits staring at them outsiders in the dark. Turning his head sharply, he saw a huge shadow rushing quickly through the ancient buildings. It seemed to be a human figure, but the figure was too huge, more than 20 meters high. Brush. Lu Mu shot out a light rain formed by the condensed spiritual power in space, and struck towards a dark area in front of him. The brilliance illuminated that corner, and a black cat that could be as big as a pony screamed with a meow, and rushed out with a whoosh, disappearing into the darkness. Such a big black cat is really jaw-dropping, and it even escaped Lu Mu's light rain attack, which makes people feel even more strange. It seems to have a chain of skulls connected in series on its neck, which is indescribably spooky and mysterious. Bone Lulu. On the ancient street, several snow-white skulls rolled down and did not stop until Xiao Chen's feet. King Qin Guang, King Yan Luo, and King Reincarnation seemed to be very concerned about these skulls, and they grabbed them, and the jaws of the three skeletons creaked. Xiao Chen took a skull from them, and found that there was a lotus brand on the snow-white forehead, which was similar to the brand on the frontal bones of King Qin Guang and the others, but there was no brilliance, only a little mark. Puff, puff, ... Several skulls were inexplicably shattered, and the white bone meal fell down like dry sand. Things are quite sinister. The skull seems to have existed for endless years, as if to warn them again. Lu Mu looked at the King of Reincarnation and said to Xiao Chen, "There is a lotus mark on the forehead bone, and it may grow into an undead king in the future. It is an existence that makes gods tremble. The few skulls just now seem to be left after the destruction of the real king. This ancient city is too mysterious and terrifying." Xiao Chen sighed. The unknown mystery always seems to have an irresistible magic power to human beings. Xiao Chen and the others entered the ancient city and came here. They could have stopped here, but a strong desire to explore seemed to be pushing them forward, wanting to explore this dead ancient city. After careful induction, Lu Mu said in a deep voice, "The ancient city is very strange. There is a force above the sky that imprisons the space, and the spirits and cursors can't leave the sky. I'm afraid only the Dragon Clan can break through. The heavenly soldiers and yin soldiers that I saw occasionally did not stop them, but when their indifferent eyes swept over them, they seemed to be looking at dead people." Ahead, there was the sound of the river rushing and roaring, and at the same time, a soaring evil spirit filled the front, and there was a pungent bloody smell floating in it. The scarlet blood mist was surging, and a roaring river of blood passed across it. The disgusting smell of blood would never make people doubt whether it was real blood or not. Up to now, even Xiao Chen is somewhat convinced that this really seems to be the Yin capital where the monarch of the dead world lives. On the roaring blood river, there is a stone bridge every not far away. The ancient bridge body is full of gods, ghosts, and engraved with the wind and frost of the years, which seems to reveal something to people. There are also some scattered bones on the stone bridges. It may be that due to too many years, those bones are almost weathered. Xiao Chen and the others didn't stop, and crossed the Blood River directly along a stone bridge. And the front seems to be the center of the ancient city, where there is a central square. A huge stone monument stands in the center of the square, more than 100 meters high. Xiao Chen was taken aback. Isn't this the god tablet in the Sea of Bones? How did it appear in the ancient city? Could it be said that the two are interlinked and have a great connection? That's how it should be. The empty square is extremely open, except for the huge and gloomy ancient monument in the center. The guardrails around the square are also very special. They are all surrounded by long strips of stones like tombstones. Then it wasn't built from ancient tombstones. Lu Mu looked suspiciously at the surrounding guardrails. At this time, the surviving cultivators also came to this place one after another, including the strong man covered in black mist, and the woman shrouded in dense colorful mist, but they no longer fought decisively but separated to occupy one side. A total of 30 or so people came here. They are the real elite among the cultivators. Hundreds of people died unexpectedly, but only a few dozen people survived in the end. In the distance, the heavenly soldiers and yin soldiers in ancient armor still ignored the crowd and did not respond to the dozens of cultivators. In the sky, the barbarian dragon roared, still attacking the dead city. At this time, the huge ancient monument standing in the center of the square suddenly erupted with a monstrous divine light, tearing the dark sky apart, making it difficult for the overwhelming blood rain to fall, and all of them were blocked in the sky. A vast ocean-like fluctuation surged in the square. Although it was not a destructive aura, it had a huge pressure from the spirit, which made it difficult for the cultivators here to bear. It was a fear from the soul. Half of them couldn't bear this coercion, and couldn't help but kneel down, like weak ants subdued at the feet of the ruler of all things. That immense coercion, that ancient aura of vicissitudes, really shocks people's souls. Xiao Chen, Lu Mu, the mysterious man in the black mist, and the woman in the colorful mist all tried their best to resist, but in the end they did not kneel down. The divine light emitted by the huge ancient monument more than 100 meters high disappeared in an instant, but at that moment, multiple shadows appeared, and suddenly there were several huge sacred monuments on the square, but if you look closely, you can find that only one side is real, and the others are almost real phantoms, standing in the center of the square together with the real ancient monument. Everyone wanted to go up to see the miraculous ancient monument. Although there were clouds and mist surging, everyone still saw that there seemed to be mysterious engravings on the ancient monument. It's just that no one can get close. Near the huge ancient monument and several surrounding monuments, it seems that there is an invisible force surging. A cultivator wanted to try to approach, but there was no danger at the beginning, but just a few meters away, it suddenly turned into a pile of bloody mud and melted on the square. No one dared to try again, and everyone had to retreat, surrounding the huge ancient monument and watching from afar. In the end, I don't know who was the first to discover that there were engravings on the guardrails around the square, and let out an exclamation. Then, everyone walked towards the pitch-black feldspar like tombstones. The guardrails of the stone monuments seemed to record many ancient events, but they were too obscure for anyone to understand. None of the engravings on the steel were intact, as if the key parts had been deliberately erased. However, everyone still gained something, and they found some engraved pictures that looked like cultivation methods. Lu Mu whispered to Xiao Chen that he found the engravings left by the strong among the space spirits. Although the illustrations were vague and the meanings were complicated, they still gave him important inspiration. At this time, there was silence in the square, and everyone was looking around the guardrail of the steel, hoping to find more valuable engravings. Xiao Chen is also searching. However, he didn't pay too much attention to the engraving diagram of the martial artist's profound kung fu mentality, because he intuitively found that those cultivation methods were far from comparable to the heaven-sent chi refining diagram he practiced. But he still gained a lot. There are many lost Sanshou engraved here, as well as some legendary killing styles, such as the killing god Sanshou, the 3 stances of reversing chaos, and the 8 demon suppressing techniques. Seeing the truth, all dharmas are empty, suddenly realize that all dharmas are the same, once the scenery can't hide, meet face to face naked. At this time, the clear and bright Buddha's voice came to everyone's ears, and a true monk floated over. He couldn't see his past grief. At this moment, he was ethereal, staring at the mysterious man covered in black mist, and said, "Dugu sword demon, come to settle a karma with you today." When he said these words, Monk Yijun was calm and plain, and there was even a charm of gods and Buddhas laughing while holding flowers, which was indescribable. It is obvious that the Buddha's desire made this young monk complete a nirvana-like transformation, as if he really had an epiphany. The black mist surged, revealing the tall figure of Dugu Sword Demon. This is a man with a cold look. He is not very handsome, but he has an imposing aura like the edge of a sword. The whole person is like a sharp sword drawn out of its sheath. It really is you. Yi Jun was very calm. It seems that the legendary Buddha's mana is really powerful, and a magic weapon can make you complete a transformation. I thought that Bodhidharma's lineage has been abolished. I can't think of a character like you. Dugu Sword Demon's voice was as cold as his expression. How many times have you been born? How many times have you died? It's been like this from ancient times to the present. There are so many faces of gods and ghosts. It's not a good idea to return to the original. Monk Yi Jun lightly recited the Buddha's name and chanted Buddhist scriptures, as if he had a deep understanding. Chapter 93 Yongzhen, the so-called Buddha, the so-called life and death, are nothing in front of me. Absolute strength can crush everything. Dugu Sword Demon once smashed an idiot monk with 3 swords. Leaving an afterimage on the spot, appearing in front of Monk Yi Jun, he swung his sword and slashed out. The blade made a terrifying howling sound, and the surrounding space was distorted. This is the embodiment of absolute power. Monk Yi Jun did not accept the move, but turned around and flew forward, floating forward like a Buddha stepping on the moon, and walked away along the ancient street. Dugu Sword Demon, you and I will fight in another place. It's not easy to want to die. In the face of absolute power, all scheming is in vain. Dugu Sword Demon's self-confidence stemmed from his being strong enough. He didn't stop for a moment, and chased after him with a black mist surging. Walking is empty, sitting is empty, speech is silent, movement and stillness are all empty. Even if you bring a white blade to your head, it is like a sharp sword cutting the spring breeze. Monk Yi Jun's words were ethereal, and gradually faded away. It can be seen that he has indeed risen to a new realm, and every sentence contains Buddhist principles. The people in the square did not chase after it. Although it might be a rare battle, it could be called the pinnacle duel of the young generation, but in a dangerous place where life and death are unpredictable, no one is willing to rush. What's more, there are some ancient practice illustrations engraved on the guardrail stone tablet around this square. Although they are all incomplete and difficult to understand, it is still a rare encounter for everyone. Everyone is searching carefully to find useful illustrations for themselves. The light of the sword suddenly appeared, and a straight line pointed directly at Lu Emu's heart. Although Xiao Chen sensed it, it was too late to rescue him. He was still some distance away from Lu Mu. Although he believed in Lu Emu's strength, after all Lu Mu had been seriously injured, he was somewhat worried. However, the cyan brilliance surged, and Lu Emu's body was shrouded in hazy brilliance. After entering that strange space, the flying knife light slowed down as if falling into a quagmire. A crystal-clear flying knife was fixed behind Lu Mu, just inches from his back. Lu Mu turned around, looked at the guardrail not far away, and said, I almost suffered a loss before, but the same attack and killing the second time is ineffective for me. Wang Tong, come out, I have locked you, today you and I can only survive. Wang Tong, the inheritor of the flying knife magical skill, stood up from behind the stone tablet on the guardrail, turned around and fled away, but Lu Mu flew up, and chased after him with a blue light in the air. Xiao Chen didn't have any delay either. His left hand was covered by the Big Dipper light curtain, and a bright star appeared between his right hand. His murderous aura was overwhelming, and he didn't want to let Wang Tong go. His figure shook continuously, leaving behind afterimages to chase after him. Xiao Chen doesn't need you to take action. I've locked him in. This time, I'm going to meet him to the death. I want him to understand that space spirits can't just be attacked and killed casually. Lu Mu was determined to kill the enemy regardless of his injuries, and his killing intent could not be changed. Crossing the Blood River, in the ancient streets, Lu Mu and Xiao Chen chased after Wang Tong, and finally chased back to this square. Being able to fly in the early stage is the biggest advantage of spirits and cursors, but Wang Tong was eventually intercepted. Lu Mu enveloped Wang Tong inside with a blue space. Unable to escape, Wang Tong and Lu Mu started a fierce battle. Xiao Li's flying knife cut through the void, turned into beams of brilliant light, and shot towards Lu Mu. However, when facing only one opponent, under the cover of the blue space, Lu Mu has impressive strength and can deal with all practitioners of the same level. The so-called most terrifying magic skill of flying knives failed today. All the flying knives slowed down in this space, and everything was clearly reflected in Lu Mu's eyes. At this moment, in front of many spectators, Lu Mu interpreted the myth that space spirits are kings at the same level, and deciphered the legendary Xiao Li Fidao. Jung, metal trills sounded, and several throwing knives were shattered into the air at the same time. The dazzling rain of swords formed by the condensed spiritual power of space simulated the shape of Xiao Li's flying sword, and shot at Wang Tong with a dazzling light. Although Wang Tong's cultivation is strong, he is unable to use it now. He has Xiao Chen's feeling at the beginning. In the space controlled by Lu Mu, his whole body is restrained, and it is difficult to move, as if he is trapped in a quagmire. Puff puff. More than a dozen glaring rays of light penetrated Wang Tong's body in a row, blood arrows shot out one after another, blood gushed from more than a dozen translucent wounds on Wang Tong's body, and Lu Mu defeated Wang Tong with the Xiao Li Fidao simulated by spatial spiritual power. The cyan light curtain gradually faded, and Wang Tong's body was shaking. He kept coughing up blood, and said with a miserable smile, "After all, I died at the hands of the living. I am much luckier than you, and you will all die." At this point, he tore off the front of his chest, and saw a big bloody hole in his chest. Although his heart was still beating inside, it was obvious that his heart was nearly taken away by sharp claws, scratches. It was obvious that he had been severely injured, and he could not live for a few days, and this suicide attack showed that he already had the will to die. After saying these words, Wang Tong fell into a pool of blood. No one knew what happened to him, but the paw print didn't seem to be made by a normal human being. Thinking of what he said just now, everyone felt chills down their spines. After all, this is a dead city. Roar. A huge roar came from outside the ancient city. It is unknown how many savage dragons have gathered now, and the real big attack has begun. Even if the surviving cultivators retreated to the central area of the dead city, they could still feel the vast fluctuations. The dragon clan is attacking frantically, and seems to want to destroy this dead city as soon as possible. Although the dead city is full of black light and evil spirits, it seems difficult to stop it. Not long after, the entire dead city shook, as if it might collapse at any moment. The blood rain in the sky had stopped, and the dark sky was illuminated by the divine light from the spells of the dragon clan. They seemed to want to break through the hazy sky, let the sun shine down, and let the light destroy the dead city. Amid a deafening bang, the dragons outside the dead city roared in unison. They seemed to cast a powerful dragon spell. The dazzling light shone like 10 suns, tearing apart the dark sky, shaking the demonic clouds in the sky, and the sun fell down in an instant. This is an amazing change. It was already noon at this moment, and the falling sunlight met with the soaring and strange light from the dead city. There was a constant roar, as if fire and water were incompatible, and there were bursts of thunder-like explosions. Afterwards, the dead air rose to the sky, and the sun was covered with blood. Although the magic cloud was shaken away, the sunlight was also dyed bloody by the dead city. There were rumbling sounds on the square. The huge sacred monument more than 100 meters high and several near-real shadows of the monument were turning rumblingly. They surrounded together and trapped a black well in the center of the square that had been unnoticed at first. It wasn't until the blood-colored sunlight fell that the dark ancient well looked so different. Although there was light shining in the sky, it was still so dark and evil, with a palpitating magical power. It was an ancient well with a diameter of no more than 3 meters. There was black air lingering faintly on it, which gave people an unfathomable feeling. It seemed to be connected to the gate of the netherworld. Under the irradiance of the blood-colored sunlight, the front of the huge divine tablet and the shadows of the surrounding tablets can be clearly seen. All the tablets are engraved with writing, and 2 of the ancient characters are the same, Yongzhen. Xiao Chen was deeply attracted by the first stele, which turned out to be Yongzhen Yellow River. Isn't this the sacred monument of his hometown? How could it appear here? He knew that this sacred tablet was a phantom, but it really shocked him that it was actually related to the sacred tablet on Long Island. Each stele has more than the word, Yongzhen, and the ancient characters after, Yongzhen, are different. Looking at the other ancient steles, except for the ancient character on the second god stele which is, Yongzhen Judao, all others only see the word, Yongzhen, which is blurred and invisible. Moreover, in the next moment, those handwritings disappeared in just a flash, and vivid patterns appeared on the various sacred tablets in the next moment. Although there are several huge sacred monuments in front of them, everyone knows that only the second sacred monument of Yongzhen Judao is real, and the rest are phantoms that seem to be real. But what surprised everyone is that all the sacred monuments emit strange power fluctuations, and they seem to be instilling power into the real sacred monument. Under the blood-colored sunlight, not only did the engravings on the divine tablet take on vivid colors, but they also seemed to have a soul, ready to come out through the wall. The first sacred stele, that is, the huge ancient stele of Yongzhen Yellow River, has a very unique pattern on it. High above the sky, dark clouds are densely covered, heavy rain is pouring, and huge lightning tears the void. Above the earth, the mountains collapsed, the surface cracked, magma surged, and the entire land trembled violently. In the ocean, there are continuous tsunamis, the stormy waves hit the shore, and the stormy waves are raging, wanting to sweep the world. The second sacred monument, that is, the huge ancient monument of Yongzhen Absolute Island, on which the wild dragon gallops in the sky, seems to be roaring and screaming, and many people and gods are also struggling. Above them is an endless sea of blood, with thousands of layers of turbulent waves and heavy waves of blood. A mountain of dry bones stands in the middle of the sea of blood. Let the monstrous waves of blood gallop, roar, and collide violently, and the mountain of bones remains motionless. Below the wild dragon and those gods and men is a dead city, full of ghosts, the dark gate of hell is ajar, the inside is lifeless, and the dark and dense world exudes endless breath of death. The most astonishing thing is that under the dead city, there is still a peaceful and pure land. The palaces are scattered, the sacred trees are shining, and the yao grass is everywhere, but there are very few outlines. It is close to the bottom of the sacred monument, and it is difficult to clearly observe the wider area. The pattern on the third stele is composed of several irrelevant sub-pictures. A farmer is plowing the field with an old ox, a shepherd is driving a herd of oxen and horses on the prairie, a fisherman is standing on a boat and casting nets into the river, and a vendor is standing in a shop selling goods. These small pictures have nothing to do with each other, but when they are combined together, they give people a simple atmosphere of life, which makes people think of all kinds of life and all kinds of mortals. The pattern on the fourth divine stele emits bursts of glow faintly, majestic heavenly palaces stand on the top of the clouds, among the misty clouds, many Chongloyu are looming. In the pattern on the fifth divine tablet, endless purple clouds and mist cover the sky and the earth, as if there are thousands of troops galloping inside, and there seem to be thousands of creatures roaring. This engraved picture is very blurry, but it makes people feel palpitating. Although it is impossible to see through the cloud and mist, there is a majestic aura like the sea in it. It seems that there are sixth and seventh divine steles, but even the body of the stele has only a little trace, not to mention the engraved pictures on it. Under the radiance of the blood-colored sunlight, the few stone carvings that can be seen not only have vivid colors but also emit bursts of faint sounds. These stone carvings are so real and vivid, and each carving seems to have its own soul. This doesn't seem like a stone carving anymore, but rather like several different worlds put together by people. Although the patterns on the several huge divine tablets are extremely miraculous, they are far inferior to the deep black well surrounded by them. The more you look at it, the more frightening it is. It seems to be a bottomless hell, trying to swallow people's minds into it. Under the ferocious bombardment of the dragon clan, ethereal and beautiful fairy music came out of the magic well for a while, and for a while there were bursts of dire roaring sounds that made the scalp tingle, making all the cultivators retreat. Although the sound was not aggressive, it made people feel chilling. The dead city was shaking violently, and the huge divine tablet and several shadows of the tablet that seemed real and illusory were also shaking violently. Although Xiao Chen deduced that only one ancient tablet was real, there were no flaws on the other sides. It was as if their souls of the tablet had come here across time and space, providing power for the ancient tablet here. Chapter 94 Seal Halberd Wheel Hexagram Dragon. In the end, the phantoms of the rest of the sacred monuments disappeared, leaving only the real ancient monument of Yongzhen Judao, which was deterring the magic well. Everyone couldn't help but wonder, are there really a few ancient monuments in this world, like the divine monument on Long Island, that will last forever? Others may have doubts, but Xiao Chen is sure that there must be several sacred monuments. After all, he has personally seen the sacred monument of Yongzhen Yellow River before. The deep, magic well, is shaking violently, it seems to be connected to another world, and there seem to be countless souls struggling and rolling, as if they are about to rush out. At this moment, the real divine steel also began to shine brightly, suppressing the dazzling strong light that was about to erupt from the magic well. The magic well kept trembling, but it was still unable to break through the seal of the divine tablet. The strong light that appeared in the magic well became more and more dim, and finally the light flashed and was hidden in the magic well. The huge divine steel was shining brightly, and it kept trembling. At this moment, the engraving on it seemed to come alive completely, as if it had life. Amidst the deafening bangs, the pattern on the divine steel flew out of the steel. The barbarian dragon, the god-man, the sea of blood, the dead city, and the pure land intertwined together, forming a light curtain that fell towards the magic well and sealed it below. On this day, the sea area around Long Island surged with huge waves, the entire sea seemed to be boiling, and the entire island trembled slightly. On the island, the trees are dancing wildly, the fallen leaves are flying, the wild beasts are roaring, and the vicious birds are screaming. The dead city was shaking violently, bursting into the sky with black light. On Long Island, a mountain peak that had been silent for many years suddenly surged with a monstrous black mist. A black iron seal rose into the sky, and flew towards the direction of the dead city, leaving a dazzling black light in the air. This iron seal was only the size of a fist at first, but when it flew over the dead city, it was already as big as a mountain, and it smashed towards the divine tablet below. The divine tablet shone with light, and a light curtain faced the sky. After the iron seal hit it, there was a loud noise, and the iron seal weighing tens of millions of weights flew out backwards. At this moment, in a mountain range that had collapsed for endless years on the island, a divine halberd erupted with dazzling light, rose from the broken ruins, and fell towards the ancient monument in the dead city. However, it was also sent flying by the ancient steel, and the divine halberd tens of feet long pierced through the void and was thrown high into the sky. Then, the Buddha statue on the gate tower of the dead city made a loud sound like Huang Zhang Dalu, resounding through the world, bursting out with dazzling light, and slammed into the ancient monument deep in the ancient city. The ancient steel trembled violently, and Buddha's body was also knocked into the air, like a huge meteor, flying into the sky with a long tail light. Then, another valley above the Dragon Island cracked, and a huge brass 8 diagram came through the air, shaking the ancient monument below with the momentum of thunder. However, the terrifying power brought by the brass gossip map still did not shake the steel, and it was also blown away by the collapse. Afterwards, iron seals, divine halberds, guns, and brass 8 trigrams bombarded the ancient monument continuously, making loud noises that shook the entire dead city, but it was difficult to damage the ancient monument. In the end, 2 rays of light rushed from the dragon clan that besieged the ancient city. The horn of an ancestor dragon was 100 meters long, and the rays of light shone brightly. The claws of an ancestor dragon were as sharp as a heavenly knife, shining brightly, tearing down quickly, and attacking the steel. The dead city, which has been silent for endless years, continues to roar today, and the strange black light covers the sky and the sun. Although the rain of blood has long since stopped, it is even more terrifying and frightening at this time. An invisible evil spirit permeates the entire ancient city. Under the attack of several sacred artifacts such as the horn of the ancestral dragon and the Buddha's body, the ancient steel trembled violently. At this time, all the dragons flew high into the sky, and all the spell attacks attacked the sacred steel in unison. Obviously their ultimate goal is the magic well, which seems to be connected to a strange world, only the ancient monument is suppressing, and other forces are trying to break into it. The countless skeletons outside the dead city are all looking up at the sky, and they seem to have souls at this moment. The endless sea of bones is covered with a layer of gloomy green light, which is the death light of the kingdom of the undead, and a mighty pressure like a raging sea surges towards the dragons in the sky. The bleak death light made the dragons in the sky dare not take it lightly. One after another divine light blasted down, tearing up huge gaps in the gloomy death light curtain and penetrating down, smashing the endless white bones below one piece after another. Obviously, this army of bones was guarding the dead city, and the screams of the sea of bones rang out from time to time. The sound of the ancient battle seemed to cut through time and space. The dragon clan had to allocate part of their energy to pay attention to this ancient battlefield. The horn of the ancestral dragon, the Buddha's body, etc. continued to bombard the sacred monument, and the dead city was already shaking. Xiao Chen and the others could no longer stay near the square, which was the real eye of the storm, and all forces were attacking there. The black iron seal, the radiant halberd, and the ancient brass gossip are obviously holy objects of the same level as the Buddha's body. They have flashed traces in ancient myths and legends, and they are extremely powerful holy weapons. Corresponds to the Buddha, so it is conceivable that the characters corresponding to the other holy objects should also be contemporaries, or people of the same level, but it is not known whether the Buddha and the others are still alive. But one thing is certain, the ancestor dragon of the previous generation has long since disappeared, otherwise it would be impossible for the horn and claw of the ancestor dragon to separate from the dragon body and appear alone. The legendary weapon, who does it belong to? Many people have such doubts. Although they have heard of several holy objects, no one really knows who it belongs to. The steel was already on the verge of falling, and it seemed that it was about to collapse. After all, it was under the attack of many forces, and it had to seal the magic well below. It seemed a little powerless to resist. However, at this moment, the guardrails around the square suddenly erupted into the sky, echoing the brilliance of the sacred monument, and began to fight against the power of the outside world together. Could it really be an ancient tombstone? Someone exclaimed. After all, those stone tablets are too similar, and they are in this dead city. The steel on the guardrail and the steel of the god are like one, forming a gorgeous light curtain, covering the whole square below. Fortunately, Xiao Chen and others retreated, otherwise they must be trapped inside at this moment. The Dragon Clan and several holy relics didn't seem to want to give up today's opportunity, and kept attacking the sacred monument. Xiao Chen and the others couldn't gain a foothold in the nearby area at all, and retreated quickly. They wanted to take this opportunity to escape from the dead city, but found that they could not find their way back. This ancient city is like a labyrinth, all the streets are so similar and extremely intricate, they stepped into a palace without knowing it. In front of the majestic palaces, there is a huge black stone with 3 ancient characters engraved on it, Temple of Death. This place obviously gives people a sense of depression, and those 3 big characters seem to tell the origin of this place. Brush. A huge shadow flashed past, and everyone looked up in shock. A giant figure in the shape of a human being more than 20 meters high quickly passed by and disappeared among the palaces. It could never be a human being. His size is too huge, but he moves like the wind and makes no sound, making it hard to find. A gust of dark wind blew by, and the blood-red gates of the ancient palace swayed constantly, making it extremely eerie and frightening. The crowd didn't go through the temple, they went around here and continued forward, but they didn't go far on the ancient street, and another ancient and magnificent building complex appeared in front of them. There was also a huge black stone standing in front of the temple, with 3 ancient characters engraved on it, Luotian Temple. This clearly corresponds to the Temple of Perishing Demons, and the connection between perishing and falling points out everything. The dozens of surviving cultivators felt chills, no one dared to observe, everyone bypassed here, and then kept groping forward, trying to escape from this ancient city. Everyone's heart is heavy, they don't know if they will get out of here alive. The crowd gradually dispersed, and many people began to act alone to find the exit of the dead city. After a while, there was a scream. Xiao Chen and Lu Mu rushed forward, and saw blood mist floating on a lump of fleshy mud on the empty street, and a huge claw mark with a length of more than 1 meter was printed on the ground. The dead person seemed to be shot to death by some inexplicable giant creature. Cautiously looking at the movement nearby, Xiao Chen and Lu Mu looked at each other and quickly backed away. They felt that there seemed to be a huge monster lurking in the dark, and its claws were about to reach out to them. Although they didn't really see it clearly, the feeling was unmistakable. They fled the area quickly, and then the screams sounded again immediately. It was obvious that someone rushed there and suffered misfortune. 3 skeletons followed them, and Lu Ruyan and Yan Qingcheng followed closely. This is a frightening ancient city, and whether they can leave here safely is full of unknowns. Passing through many streets, I saw many magnificent temples along the way, which turned out to be many unheard of evil temples. Xiao Chen and the others still haven't found a way out of the dead city. They can sense the energy fluctuations emanating from the sacred monument in the center of the ancient city, but when they headed in the opposite direction to find the city gate, they couldn't find a real way out. The ancient streets kept leading them astray, and the direction seemed to be covered with a veil of evil in this ancient city, so they couldn't really tell. Boom! As if tens of thousands of horses were galloping, the nearby ancient buildings trembled violently. Xiao Chen and the others hurriedly rushed to the depths of an alley, feeling as if a group of huge monsters were rushing down the street, rushing past in bursts of fierce evil spirit amidst rumbling noises. Chapter 95. There are really ghosts. In the distance, there were bursts of creepy screams, as if someone had been torn apart by a huge unknown monster. Xiao Chen and the others looked at each other. The ancient city became more and more terrifying, but they never found the horrible creatures or ghosts haunting this dead city. They knew that once they confronted them, they would have to separate life and death immediately. Can escape from here? The stunner Lu Ruyan was sweating coldly, her face was a little pale. Perhaps. Xiao Chen really didn't have the slightest confidence. This dead city obviously had an extremely powerful ancient formation, otherwise they couldn't always find the right direction. Ah! The screams sounded on the street not far away. Lu Mu flew out quickly, looked out in the alley, then flew back with a sudden change of expression, saying, "It's not good, I saw those Yin soldiers also shot." When they entered the city, they saw hundreds of Yin soldiers and heavenly soldiers, as if they were ancient fossils. They had turned a blind eye to many cultivators, but now they took action, which is really not a good thing. Xiao Chen walked to the exit of the alley and looked out. Only 2 Yin soldiers dragged the corpses of several cultivators towards the distance. It seemed that they killed those young cultivators without any effort. This was really a terrible thing. We must find a way, this city is too dangerous for us. Xiao Chen felt a little heavy, and there seemed to be no feasible way to escape from this place now. There was silence. What kind of ghost spirits are you? Get out of here. In the distance, the voice of Dugu Sword Demon suddenly came, and he seemed to be in trouble. Immediately afterwards, there were bursts of terrifying low growls, the angry roar of Dugu Sword Demon, and the ear-piercing roar of the iron sword cutting through the void. After a fierce fight, Dugu Sword Demon let out a long howl, as if he was wounded and fled away. This caused Lu Ruyan and Yan Qingcheng to change their colors at the same time. They knew very well that Dugu Sword Demon was terrible, and even he couldn't deal with the fierce creatures that appeared in the city, so the others might be even more difficult to fight. Xiao Chen and the others did not enter those wide streets, but walked forward in the alleys. In comparison, there will definitely not be any giants here. When they passed by the gates of various mansions, they were extremely careful, because according to the information they got, there were unknown murderers in each ancient mansion, and many cultivators were eaten raw when they first entered the ancient city. Fortunately, the murderous thing in the ancient house did not come out, otherwise it would be an extremely terrifying thing. Just thinking about it, all the ominous creatures in the ancient city would make one's scalp tingle. In the dark alleys, the pavement paved with black stones has experienced the baptism of endless years, exuding the vicissitudes of time. Xiao Chen and the others turned left and right, but they still couldn't find a way out, feeling hopeless to get out of the dead city. The sound of da-da suddenly resounded in the alley, and the quiet voice lingered in the quiet alley, which made Xiao Chen and the others feel a chill immediately. This could not be their sound, as their cultivation level reached their level, walking was already as light as a feather. It was as if someone was wearing wooden clogs, following them leisurely. Xiao Chen turned around suddenly, but found nothing. At the same time the sound of ta-ta disappeared. Go, don't worry about it, let's leave this area quickly. Xiao Chen knew that they had finally encountered an unknown terrifying evil thing, and they were already being targeted. Lu Ruyan looked uneasy. Yan Qingcheng's cultivation base was sealed, and it was also difficult to maintain a calm look. The two rushed to the three skeletons and ran forward quickly. Xiao Chen and Lu Mu also increased their speed, and at the same time, they were cautiously on guard, lest the terrible evil thing in the dark suddenly kill them. Da-da-ta, the sudden voice sounded again, but it turned out to be coming from the front. Ah! Lu Ruyan screamed, turned around and ran back. Yan Qingcheng also turned and ran back. With a chilly wind blowing in front, Xiao Chen and Lu Mu raised their cultivation to the limit and looked at the corner of the dark alley ahead. A section of the shroud was fluttering with the wind, and most of it was exposed, exuding a fierce aura. The footsteps of da-da stopped, only the shroud was shaking, and I couldn't see what evil thing was on the other side of the corner. Lu Ruyan and Yan Qingcheng had already hid behind. Xiao Chen and Lu Mu looked at each other. They knew that they could not get rid of the ghost in the dark now. The other party had completely stared at them, and they had to stop it. The two walked forward together, and the three skeletons followed them closely, and they also felt a strong sense of unease. Ah! Sudden screams sounded in the distance, especially scary in the quiet ancient streets. Xiao Chen and the others stopped in their tracks immediately, and the shroud that was hunting in front of them also suddenly pulled away, making the palpitating ominous breath disappear, and the sound of tat-tat footsteps rushed towards the distance. The scene was dead silent, and after a long time, several people were convinced that the unknown evil thing had left. Scary, scary. Lu Ruyan patted her towering chest lightly, looking shocked, and said, although I didn't see what it was, I knew we were very dangerous just now. Fortunately, he has already left. Lu Mu also let out a sigh of relief. He was actually very nervous. After all, this is a terrifying dead city, which has already taken the lives of many cultivators. Da-da-ta, the sound of footsteps sounded again in the empty street, coming from behind them. The smiles of the few people who had just relaxed suddenly froze. How could this be? Lu Ruyan's voice trembled, Yan Qingcheng's face changed suddenly, and they turned around quickly. This time, Xiao Chen didn't back down. He decided to make a break. The other party had already locked them. It's better to solve it as soon as possible instead of going on in such a frightened stalemate. As if understanding his intentions, Lu Mu rushed back along the original road together with him. However, in the process of rushing back, they instantly understood that this did not seem to be the evil thing just now, because they did not feel the palpitating evil spirit, but they also felt the great danger. Brush! A huge shadow appeared in the alley, blocking their way. It looked like a ferocious devil baring its teeth and claws. Behind the shadow was a dark cloud of black mist. There was no light to be seen, as if there was a door of death standing there. Without any extra words, Xiao Chen used his hand instead of the knife, and directly chopped out a brilliant divine light, which turned into an indestructible knife light and tore it forward. Lu Mu even used the spiritual power of space to condense into a light rain, covering it forward. Click, click, the sound of bone breaking came out. Immediately after, the blood splashed out, steaming hot, and the scarlet blood flowed down the road. This couldn't be a dead person, it was clearly a living creature. Bone Lulu, a human head rolled out of the black mist and rolled to Xiao Chen's feet, with a hideous face, as if he had been greatly frightened before his death. Ah! Lu Ruyan, who was behind, screamed in fright. Without looking too much, Xiao Chen had already recognized that this was the young cultivator who was with them not long ago, but then everyone dispersed. This person obviously didn't die under their attack just now, because his neck was torn apart by life, and there were deep claw marks on it. The black mist in front of him was still floating, but the huge phantom disappeared, and a shadow could be seen standing there in the black mist. Brush! With a flash of light, Lu Mu launched an attack, and a light curtain poured down like a water curtain, rushing towards the black mist. At the same time, Xiao Chen strode forward without fear, and the Beidou light curtain in his left hand quickly left his palm as if tearing the void, and fell towards the black mist. Giggle! There was such an ear-piercing and unpleasant sound in the black mist, as if the teeth were constantly gnashing vigorously. At the same time, the black mist violently surged up, violently confronting the two light curtains falling from the cover, trying to disperse them. Chi-chi! Like the sound of water spray falling on a red-hot iron block, the junction between the black mist and the light curtain kept making this sound. At the same time, a disgusting corpse smell wafted away, and a stream of yellow corpse water flowed from the black mist along the road. Ghost, it's an evil spirit. Lu Ruyan changed color and exclaimed. Kill him quickly, or it may attract other similar evil things. Yan Qingcheng's face changed suddenly, and she shouted hastily. Although she was hostile to Xiao Chen, at this moment she did not want Xiao Chen and the others to make mistakes. In fact, she doesn't need to say it at all. Xiao Chen and Lu Mu are both decisive people, they have already developed the strongest unique skills. Lu Mu has completely sealed off this space, and now he can't care about the smell of corpses. The cyan light curtain shrouded him, Xiao Chen, and He Wu were already in a strange space, which belonged to Lu Mu's battle space. Xiao Chen, hurry up, I'll stop him. The power of space imprisoned the black mist like water waves, but Xiao Chen's movements were not hindered at all. The Beidou light curtain appeared again in his left hand, and the bright star in his right hand turned into a crescent-like light blade because of his emotional fluctuations. Kill! The light curtain in Xiao Chen's left hand magnified and protected him like a light shield. He rushed forward quickly, and the crescent moon blade in his right hand cut out like a fairy blade from the sky, tearing fiercely into the black mist. Woo! A piercing and mournful scream sounded from the black mist. It seems that this evil thing is not strong, we are enough to kill him. Lu Mu's confidence was boosted, he could clearly feel that it was difficult for the other party to break through his confinement, and he was almost immobilized by him, and Xiao Chen's powerful attack power was beyond doubt, enough to destroy this threat. The crescent-shaped light blade rotated back and forth in the black mist, like a new moon descending among the dark clouds, constantly breaking through the darkness. The smell of dead bodies is really disgusting. Although he is no longer breathing, he still seems to be able to feel the smell of vomiting. Xiao Chen dispersed the black mist with his powerful combat power, and a 7 or 8-year-old boy appeared. The clothes on his body were very old, like the ancient engraved pictures on the stone wall, full of ancient flavor. He is lifeless, his eyes are dull like dead fish, he is innocent at this age, but he has a vicious charm, and he is staring at Xiao Chen and Lu Mu fiercely. The tattered ancient clothes had been shattered by the crescent-shaped light blade, but the body was not severed. The skin was dry and cracked, like layers of fish scales, and the light blade left marks on his thin body that was as dry and hard as iron, and the yellow corpse water flowed out from those tiny wounds. What a ghost! Lu Mu was a little surprised. He believed in gods in the world, because he practiced hard for longevity, but he didn't really believe in ghosts. In his view, gods are powerful beings evolved from human beings, but what are ghosts? After death, a person is completely extinguished, and it should be returned to nothingness. The existence of undead creatures is reasonable, because their souls have not been destroyed, but ghosts. Lu Mu looked at this boy reeking of corpses in surprise. He didn't feel soul fluctuations in him, but only a vicious and fierce aura. Don't worry about it so much now, let's destroy him first. Xiao Chen controlled the crescent light blade to slash continuously, without the protection of the black mist. This hideous ghost was no longer indestructible. In the glaring light, His 2 arms had been cut off by the light blade, and in the process, there were bursts of metal clanging sounds, as if cutting iron. Afterwards, Xiao Chen violently cut off his neck, causing his head to roll off. There is nothing worthy of pity for such a vicious creature, and even the slightest lenient hand may leave a fatal disaster. After the head was cut off, this ancient, evil ghost, was still struggling, his body was trembling slightly, and his head wanted to roll away. Lu Mu didn't give him a chance, and Xiao Chen wouldn't let him go. The 2 of them worked together to completely shatter his body. Chapter 96 Shroud. Lu Mu's cyan battle space opened up, and the stench of corpses immediately spread, and Lu Ruyan and Yan Qingcheng in the rear almost retched and vomited bitter water. Even the 3 skeletons seemed to hate this fierce aura very much, and hid in the leeward place. It took a long time for the alley to return to calm. Get out of here quickly. Xiao Chen rushed to another alley first. Several others followed closely behind. They know things are dire. What I killed just now was just a little evil spirit. If I encounter a normal adult, evil spirit, it is really unknown whether I can defeat it. In particular, if the ominous spirit in the shroud appeared in front of them earlier, things would definitely be very terrifying. Hide. Xiao Chen quickly rushed into the shadows in the alley, and the people behind him also hid like him. Discovering danger in advance is a kind of induction from spiritual consciousness, an instinctive reaction of the mind to seek good luck and avoid evil, and it is the pure spiritual perception of a practitioner after reaching a certain level. At this time, a gust of wind blew in the air, chilling people's backs, and a shadow quickly flew over the alley. Although they rushed over quickly, their cultivation bases were not weak, and they could see clearly what kind of ominous thing it was in an instant, and their expressions changed again and again. It was a figure with gray wings, but his head was like a skeleton, with only a layer of dry skin attached to it, and his eye sockets were extremely hollow, which looked very scary. That was by no means a fallen angel or other near-god race, but a real, birdman, who had died, but he was able to fly freely. The dark wind picked up again, and the chill shrouded the ground. Several people hid again. This time, 3 birdmen with the faces of evil spirits flew over. This is really a ghostly place. Even Xiao Chen, who is as determined as iron, sighed like this. Suddenly, King Qin Guang and the 3 skeletons became uneasy, and the light of soul in their eyes stared at the end of the alley. The 3 skeletons seemed to be very sensitive to the unique evil spirit in the dead city, this time they even noticed it before Xiao Chen and the others. I saw a shadow slowly extending from the ground, and then a biting wind blew in, and then the shroud exuding a fierce and ominous aura emerged from the corner, whistling with the wind. Everyone felt their scalps go numb for a while. After all, this terrifying monster caught up with them. They thought they had already escaped. The original color of the shroud has long been indistinguishable, because it is full of black blood stains, and it makes a crashing sound in the dark wind. The dark alley is so terrifying and strange. The evil spirit surged violently in an instant, and a tall and majestic black figure turned around the corner. His whole body was in darkness, there was a black mist floating there, and his body was completely covered by the wide shroud, making it difficult to see his true face. Only a pair of eyes can be seen, like a pale green will-o'-the-wisp beating. There is no soul fluctuation, only the stench of rotting corpses and the tragic evil spirit. There is no way to escape anymore, this ominous spirit has obviously locked them, and now the only thing to do is to stop it once and for all. The tall black shadow walked silently, only the shroud made a terrible shaking sound in the dark wind, and a pair of eyes of death stared at Xiao Chen and the others coldly. Do it. Xiao Chen was fearless, and rushed up against the biting wind. The light curtain of the Big Dipper in the left hand emerged and turned into a 7-star light shield in front of the body, and the crescent moon light blade in the right hand also appeared. The dazzling light was unparalleled, like a materialized magic weapon. The crescent moon light blade drew a beautiful trajectory, like a comet from the sky piercing the sky, and the radiant light illuminated the entire dark alley, directly cutting the fierce spirit's neck. The black mist was dispersed, and the tall body of the ominous ghost appeared, wrapped in a black shroud, like a gloomy tombstone. With a sound of clang, the piercing metallic trembling sound made people's eardrums feel extremely painful. The evil spirit's right hand was as fast as lightning, and a dark wind swayed in front of his neck, and the crescent moonlight blade flew out. It was a ghost claw like black gold, with a layer of black corpse skin on the dry joints. It was a veritable evil ghost claw, and it made people feel scalp numb when they saw it. The light flickered, and the crescent moonlight blade swirled towards the extremely fast, attacking the chest and abdomen of the fierce spirit. At the same time, Lu Mu moved his hands again and again, and a cage formed by the condensed spiritual power of space quickly fell from the air towards the ominous ghost. The vicious ghost didn't back down, but strode forward. The ghost claw on the right side slammed the moonlight blade again. At the same time, his left hand reached out, violently shattering the blue cage above his head. A strong smell of rotting corpses came out. His left hand was very different from his right hand. The left hand was extremely swollen, as if soaked in water for many days. It was very bloated and thick, but its strength was no less than that of the right hand. Lu Mu and Xiao Chen looked at each other. This ominous spirit was so evil, they might not be able to do anything to each other. However, it is useless to run away now, the only way to survive is to fight to the death. Xiao Chen raised his zongong to the limit, and his long black hair danced wildly. Then, the Big Dipper light curtain in the left hand merged with the crescent moon light blade in the right hand, the 7 stars were embedded in the crescent moon, and the light blade became extremely bright. Xiao Chen held it in his right hand. He rushed forward without fear, his tall and straight body left afterimages like fleeting shadows, and the first slash hit the fierce spirit's waist, obviously wanting to slash in half. The evil spirit seemed to sense Xiao Chen's strength and the sharpness of the light blade. This time, he didn't use the ghost claws to block it, and quickly dodged to the side, and then the gloomy claws stabbed at Xiao Chen's heart. After Xiao Chen's cultivation level has improved, nothing has improved more than his speed. He somersaulted in an instant, rushed to the sky in an instant, avoided the ghost claw, and then swooped down head and foot. The ominous ghost let out a low growl, and backed up again and again. The ground was kicked by his feet to open huge cracks. One can imagine how much pressure he was under. At this time, Lu Mu had also raised his spiritual power to the limit and shot. The cyan light curtain divided the area into several pieces, forming several overlapping spaces. He not only temporarily blocked the escape route of the evil spirit, but also wanted to tear the evil spirit apart with this unique space technique. Crackling, the ominous ghost's body made such a sound, it seemed that the bones of the whole body were dislocated, resisting Lu Mu's space squeeze force. This provided a good opportunity for Xiao Chen. Although his body was tall and straight, his movements were like wind and electricity, and his movements were as light and shadow. He turned his body in the air and slashed at the temporarily trapped ghost again. The ominous ghost's body was restrained, but his hands broke through the restraint, crossed upwards to block, and let out an angry growl. Bursts of black mist sprayed from his mouth into the air. Xiao Chen's body was shining with light, and a layer of light curtain protected his body like a shield, not afraid of those corrosive corpse miasmas. Clang! The light blade slashed fiercely on the swollen ghost claw. Although there was a ghostly light flickering to protect the ghost, but after Xiao Chen's light blade merged with the Big Dipper, it was too sharp, and he cut it deeply. The bloated ghost palm was almost cut off, yellow corpse water splashed everywhere, and the light blade was embedded in the ghost palm's bone. Roar! Although he was a fierce ghost, he seemed to feel severe pain, and let out a chilling roar. And with a boom, the overlapping space under Lu Mubu collapsed, broke free from it, and was about to pounce on Xiao Chen, who fell from the sky. Xiao Chen's movements were too quick. He flew up in the air like a gust of wind, and then stepped down on his head. He kicked those open ghost claws fiercely, and then he flew upside down. All of this was extremely clean. Roar! The fierce spirit roared, and after being stepped on 2 feet, the sharp light blade embedded in his ghost's palm unexpectedly shattered, shattering one of his ghost claws, and yellow corpse water splashed everywhere. The shroud rattled, the fierce spirit roared, and the blue light in his eyes danced violently. His shattered left palm swelled up again, and finally the severed palm regenerated, and a putrid ghost palm appeared intact again. Xiao Chen took a breath. Lu Mu also frowned, and said, "His combat power is terrifying. If it weren't for his lack of intelligence, our situation would be even worse." Roar! The fierce spirit roared and rushed over, billowing black mist, and the ground trembled under his violent running, cracking huge gaps. One can imagine how powerful his strength is. The space overlaps. Lu Mu's handsome and somewhat sickly cheeks flushed with blood. He showed his top-notch technique, using the power of space to trap evil spirits, and the folded space tore at the evil spirits. Hey! Xiao Chen strode forward, his eyes were as sharp as a knife's edge, and the light blade in his hand seemed to melt. It was indistinguishable from his right palm, and the light blade was completely absorbed into the palm. Boom! A palm knife slashed fiercely on the forearm of Ji Ling, a terrifying wound burst out, and corpse water surged out. The brilliance flickered, and afterimages were left behind in the palm of the knife. Xiao Chen's whole body turned into a beam of light, constantly shooting around the slow-moving ominous spirit. Torn apart by the overlapping space, although the evil spirit wanted to scratch Xiao Chen, but he couldn't do it. He was so anxious that he kept roaring angrily. Although his death body blocked the sword with streaks of ghostly light, he also suffered a lot of damage. Xiao Chen's palm of light made Lu Mu deeply surprised. If he was not facing this terrifying ominous spirit, but against cultivators of the same level, Xiao Chen's fighting power would be absolutely unparalleled. However, the power and fear of the ominous spirit exceeded Lu Mu and Xiao Chen's expectations. The shroud shook violently, emitting a strong breath of death. The ghostly light caused Lu Mu's spatial spiritual power to collapse, and the overlapping blue space disappeared in an instant. And Xiao Chen was also severely impacted by the powerful force. What was more serious was that the evil spirit locked on it, leaving an afterimage on the spot and rushed to him in an instant, opened a pair of ghost claws and grabbed it. Xiao Chen crazily improved his cultivation, dodged at the limit speed, and launched an extremely fierce counterattack. One person and one ghost were entangled like two lights and shadows. The shroud seemed to be an extremely powerful and evil thing, blowing gusts of sinister wind, which made Xiao Chen feel dizzy, and ghostly lights wrapped around him, like ghosts dancing. The evil spirit is really too powerful, and with the evil power of the shroud, he has laid down a domain that belongs to him, which is a special ghost domain. Even though Xiao Chen was unmatched in combat power, and even though his light palms made the evil spirits deeply taboo, he was still suppressed and kept avoiding. In the end, he even flew upside down in the air, trying to get rid of the evil ghost domain, but the evil ghost also rose into the sky, entangled with him in the air, and when the ghost claws waved, a series of gloomy lights of death were drawn, and the ghostly aura enveloped Xiao Chen. Break! Xiao Chen yelled. His right palm touched the ghost claw. This time the evil spirit couldn't dodge it, so the ghost claw grabbed his knife. Click! The sound of bone shattering came out, and the ghost claw was shattered. It has to be said that the palm knife fused with Big Dipper and Moon Blade was invincible, and even the fierce spirit suffered a great loss. But in an instant, the shroud on the ghost's body flipped and quickly wrapped around Xiao Chen's radiant right palm, and the black mist surged, drowning the light immediately. All this happened so fast, it was all done in the air. The evil spirit let out a low growl, and the shroud covering his body flipped over, trying to wrap Xiao Chen in. The black mist flooded the alley, and the breath of death was overwhelming, making this place extremely terrifying. Xiao Chen struggled with all his strength, but the shroud was so strange that it couldn't be completely damaged, and the indestructible light palm could hardly split and shatter it, and it was about to engulf Xiao Chen in it. Chapter 97 Soul Divine Light. It was too late for Lu Mu to rescue him, it was really too fast. Just now he was sent flying far away, too far away from Xiao Chen's place. The spiritual power of space could not affect this area. As for Lu Ruyan next to her, she didn't have that kind of cultivation. But at this moment, 3 white lights rushed into the air like 3 bolts of lightning, and the 3 skeletons who hadn't made a move until Xiao Chen was in danger finally made a move. Since the start of the war, the 3 guys have been watching the battle. They are quiet and abnormal, as if they are observing the weakness of the evil spirit. Boom! They ran into the fierce spirit at the same time, and the 6 white bone claws violently tore at the shroud, avoiding the danger of Xiao Chen being completely engulfed. At the same time, Xiao Chen also moved quickly. After several fierce collisions between the lower legs and the fierce ghost's legs, his left hand also slashed towards the fierce ghost's throat. When they fell to the ground together, Xiao Chen's radiant right palm finally broke free from the shroud, and the 3 skeletons tore the shroud in 3 directions, trying to tear it off the evil spirit. The shroud is definitely an evil and fierce thing. The 3 skeletons have a keen insight into all this, and Xiao Chen has already understood it deeply. Just now, he almost suffered a big loss because of it, and he also tore the evil cloth covered with black blood. The dark black light flickered, and there were bursts of ghostly howls from the shroud. The sound was so shrill that it made people feel scalp numb, and the black mist surged violently in the alley. Roar! The evil spirit seemed to be very anxious, violently shaking the shroud, trying to shatter Xiao Chen and the others. At this time, Lu Mu also rushed over, and the overlapping spatial spiritual power shrouded down again, and the blue light made the ominous ghost fall into a quagmire. Quick! Tear off the shroud, he is not as powerful as imagined, his power comes from this evil cloth. Xiao Chen shouted at Lu Mu. During the close fight, he discovered the secret, it was the shroud that made the fierce spirit powerful. What? The shroud? Lu Mu continuously surged out the blue space spiritual power, imprisoned the shroud, and tore it apart violently. Ah! The fierce spirit roared angrily. The shroud on his head had been ripped off by King Samsara, revealing half of his rotten cheek. There was a green light in the deep-set eye sockets, and the messy bloody hair on the head stood upright. Such a rotting corpse was really hideous and frightening, and it was a veritable evil spirit. The evil spirit fell into a state of despair. If the shroud was torn off, his ferocity would be greatly reduced. He struggled fiercely, and finally spewed out a few mouthfuls of yellow corpse gas, which turned into a dazzling lightsaber and attacked Xiao Chen and Lu Mu. This was the strongest evil spirit inside him, forcing Xiao Chen and the others to avoid it. Roar! The evil ghost roared loudly, and at the moment Xiao Chen and Lu Mu were forced to retreat, he violently shook the shroud, and endless breath of death arose, and the black mist rolled away, shaking King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Reincarnation away in an instant. Shili Wala, the skeletons of the 3 skeletons collapsed and scattered on the street, the white bones all over the place were particularly glaring. Xiao Chen's heart sank, but then his tense mood relaxed again. The skeleton was not shattered, it was all separated from the joints, and he actually saw a little light shining from King Qin Guang's skull, which seemed to tell him that he was fine. 3 cunning skeletons. Xiao Chen no longer worried about them. The evil ghost looked fiercely at Xiao Chen and Lu Mu, then dragged his rotten legs, striding towards them, leaving yellow marks on the ground that were corpse water. All his attention was focused on the 2 people in front of him. But at this moment, when he passed by the skulls of the 3 skeletons, the 3 skulls rushed up quickly, shooting towards the evil spirit like 3 white lights. At the same time, Xiao Chen and Lu Mu also shot, a blazing blade light and a rain of spiritual power shrouded the evil ghost. The evil ghost roared and waved one ghost claw, trying to shake off the 3 skulls, while the other ghost claw resisted Xiao Chen and Lu Mu's killing style. The 3 skulls were indeed blown away by him, but 3 beams of soul light rushed out of the skulls, piercing into the eyes of the evil spirit like 3 lightning bolts. Boo! As if he had received a devastating injury, the evil ghost immediately fell to the ground, rolling and struggling violently in the alley. Without any delay, Xiao Chen rushed up quickly, grabbed the shroud violently, and then pulled it up with shaking hands. The shroud was flapping, hunting, and a thick black mist was rising, finally breaking away from the body of the evil spirit. Lu Mu also rushed over and imprisoned the shroud in a small closed space with spatial spiritual power. Without the shroud, the body of the evil spirit is completely exposed, which is really a terrifying appearance. Half of his body was extremely bloated and rotted away, and the other half of the body looked like the peel of an orange had dried up, wrapped dryly around the skeleton, and shining with black light at the same time. Grim and terrifying, the evil spirit was still tumbling. Xiao Chen stepped forward, and stomped fiercely towards the evil spirit's neck with one foot. With a crisp click, the neck bone broke, and the ferocious ghost's head rolled down. At the same time, 3 beams of soul light rushed out from the evil ghost's eyes and shot into the 3 snow-white skulls on the ground. The evil spirit whose head was separated from the body was still not stiff, and broke free suddenly. The headless body stood upright, and still rushed towards Xiao Chen fiercely. At this moment, after losing the shroud, he is far from being as strong as before, and can no longer threaten Xiao Chen's life. Xiao Chen soared into the air, kept paddling with both hands in the air, and then pressed down vigorously. The blazing divine light tore apart one after another, and then tore the evil ghost apart with a boom. Even though he knew that the evil spirits were no longer their opponents after losing the shroud, Lu Mu was still shocked by Xiao Chen's killing move, and couldn't help asking, "Why have I never seen you use this killing move?" Xiao Chen descended from the air and said, "I didn't dare to use it before. This is a move I saw on the guardrail around the sacred monument. It seems to be the legendary, killing god Sancho. I have never practiced it before. How dare I use it to deal with evil spirits? I just felt that there is no danger. I just used him to try the move. I didn't expect killing god Sancho to be so powerful." Sure enough, no matter how good the Shuangong mentality is, it also needs the cooperation of clever killing styles to exert its greatest power. That's it. Lu Mu's sickly but handsome face showed a smile. He wrote down a lot of engravings about the space at the guardrail of the square. If he is given time, he will definitely understand. And Xiao Chen recorded many lost killing techniques, not only killing god Sancho, but also the 3 stances of reversing chaos and the 8 demon suppressing techniques. The evil spirit was torn apart, and the black mist dissipated quickly. At this time, Lu Ruyan and Yan Qingcheng also came closer, looking at the wreckage on the ground in shock, and Xiao Chen shot again and broke the head. Lu Mu opened the closed space, threw the shroud on the ground, and several people felt the fluctuation of evil power. Yan Qingcheng just watched the whole battle from the sidelines. She seemed a little excited and couldn't help but said, "This shroud is left over from ancient times. Not only has it not been damaged so far, but it also has a terrible vicious aura and powerful power. It must have been stained with the blood of some great people. That's right, it must have been infiltrated with the blood of the superpowers, otherwise it wouldn't be so scary. It's really a strange shroud." Lu Mu said this, looked at the 3 skeletons next to him, and then said to Xiao Chen, thanks to the 3 of them, otherwise we would be in real danger. Unexpectedly, the light of their souls is so powerful, and this is obviously a preliminary sign that they can grow into kings. The 3 skeletons slowly assembled their own skeletons, and then moved their joints in a funny way, but the eyes of several people looking at them were obviously different. These 3 guys are definitely a model of pretending to be pigs and eating tigers. Is it really a ghost? I didn't feel the soul wave in them. Lu Mu said to himself. After this battle, his injuries got worse, and he looked a little weak. Xiao Chen was also thinking about it, and said, maybe it's because the evil spirit of the dead city is so strong that the lingering spirits in the corpses are not extinct, forming such a terrifying ominous spirit. Maybe, the legendary ghosts are formed in this way. Afterwards, the eyes of several people fell on the shroud again. Judging from Xiao Chen's shattering of the evil spirit, the real strength of the evil spirit was not so terrifying. The reason why he was invincible at the beginning was because the blood-stained shroud enhanced his might. This adult evil spirit is not much stronger than the little evil spirit we exterminated earlier, it just relied on this evil spirit, how should we deal with it? Lu Mu asked Xiao Chen. For such an evil thing with a fierce aura, few people have a good impression of it, and no one is willing to use it as a weapon. Even if they want to refine it, it seems impossible. I am afraid that only evil spirits can sacrifice it. How about the 3 of you? Xiao Chen looked at King Qin Guang and the others. Kaba Kaba, the 3 skeletons kept opening and closing their jaws, shaking their hands to refuse. At the same time, the lotus imprints on their foreheads bloomed with brilliant divine light, setting their white skeletons as bright as white jade. Where there was a gloomy atmosphere, it was like the most perfect masterpiece of divine jade in the sky. Several people were secretly amazed, the bones full of sacred aura are really strange. In the end, the shroud was pressed under the stone slabs in the alley by several people, and they quickly left here. However, at the corner, Xiao Chen heard a squeak sound clearly, as if the gate of a certain old house was pushed open. He glanced back abruptly, and saw a man in ancient clothes quickly tore out the shroud under the stone slab, and then floated back into the ancient house. In an instant, Xiao Chen felt a chill down his spine, because at the last moment he saw the true face of that person clearly. It turned out to be a certain legendary fairy in the human world who had been molded into a golden body. However, after a quick glance, he didn't feel the immortal energy in the opponent, nor did he feel the fluctuation of the soul, but only the eerie evil spirit. Xiao Chen quickly followed Lu Mu and the others, away from the corner of the alley, but it was hard for him to keep calm anymore. What kind of place is the ancient city? Why is this happening? Just now, he would never be wrong. His mood fluctuated violently, and he thought a lot, but he didn't tell Lu Mu and the others what he saw, because saying it now would only increase panic. Walking through the ancient streets, Xiao Chen became more cautious and kept a respectful distance from the gates of every ancient house. It was hard to tell what was hidden inside, let alone guess what dangers still existed in the ancient city. Suddenly, bursts of shouts came to the ears of several people, and the sound of fierce fighting came from an ancient street not far away, and there seemed to be a lot of people. Walking is empty, sitting is empty, speech is silent, movement is empty, even if you bring a white knife to your head. Xiao Chen heard the voice of a real monk. He walked out of this alley and looked towards the ancient street, only to see 7 or 8 cultivators fighting fiercely with 2 yin soldiers. Among them are Monk Yijun and Dugu Sword Demon. At this moment, they let go of their hatred and fight against powerful enemies together, and the mysterious woman in the colorful mist is also among them. A yin soldier was like an ancient fossil, his whole body was covered by armor. He stood on the spot without moving. The ancient bronze spear in his hand drew out streaks of brilliance, forcing several strong young men to be unstoppable. If it wasn't for the woman in the colorful mist, the god of time would have slowed down his movements, and they would have been in danger already. Dugu Sword Demon showed his sharpness like a sharp sword, and the iron sword in his hand twisted the space even more, and the long sword made a howling sound. He was definitely the most powerful person among them. Monk Yijun is supernatural and refined, flying in the air like a god and Buddha flying in the sky. There are lotus lights and shadows floating around him, and his whole body is full of Buddha nature. One after another Buddha's handprints turned into thousands of light and shadows, continuously imprinting on the yin soldier. After being enlightened by the ancient Buddha manifested from the body of the Buddha, he completed a transformation, and now he is not much weaker than Dugu Sword Demon. Xiao Chen and Lu Mu strode forward, and now it is the best strategy to be together, they decided to join the battle group. It has to be said that the combat power of the yin soldiers is very amazing. Only one person can resist 8 young strong men, and he seems to be in a situation where his mind is not very clear, and he definitely has super terrifying combat power. He couldn't sense his mood swings at all, no matter how he looked at it. He looked like a moving stone statue, fighting against so many masters alone. He was still as silent and indifferent as before. Chapter 98 Desperation. The space overlaps. Lu Mu looked at the god of time and made the yin bing move slowly. His eyes suddenly became hot, and the spiritual power of space surged out. The power of space and the power of time merged together, bursting out a dazzling light, the power of which was beyond everyone's imagination. Boom! The sound of shattering came out, and half of the ancient armor on Yin Bing's body was cracked, his strong body was exposed to the air, and black mist appeared from his bronze-colored skin. At this time, Xiao Chen also made a move. He rushed into the air, and then swooped down to the Yin soldiers, killing God Sancho to attack decisively, tearing off several blazing rays of light. At the same time, Dugu Sword Demon swung his iron sword at the Yin soldiers, and Monk Yijun even struck out a huge Guangwa Buddha's hand to move forward. The Yin soldier felt the danger, and after half of his armor cracked, his strength seemed to have lost most of his strength, and he waved the ancient bronze spear in his hand to resist the enemy. However, under the glaring light, the remaining armor on his body was completely shattered, and the ancient bronze spear in his hand was even broken. The bronze-colored body was completely exposed to the air, and then his body began to age slowly, with terrible wrinkles and muscles gradually shrinking. Finally met a living person, no longer an evil ghost. Dugu Sword Demon said coldly. He seemed to have encountered an evil ghost before, and the scratches on his body were horrific. Yin Bing's eyes showed an extremely confused look, as if he had lost his soul, and then the weak soul fluctuations in his body disappeared, and then his strong body completely decayed, and finally turned into a skinny skeleton, with ghost lights in his eyes, and an evil spirit erupted from his body. A cultivator said in surprise, "How could this be? He lost his vitality, it seems, turned into an evil spirit." Just after he finished speaking, a deep growl came from Yin Bing's mouth. He seemed to have obtained a different kind of new life, and rushed towards the crowd with a ferocious face. Xiao Chen, who fell from the sky, bears the brunt, but Xiao Chen is not afraid. He has seen evil spirits before, as long as those characters in the ancient house are not dispatched, or there are evil things like shrouds blessing the evil spirits, he can deal with ordinary evil spirits. Killing God Sancho struck out fiercely, his hands seemed to have turned into 2 heavenly knives, invincible and unparalleled in sharpness. The blazing light tore apart, and shattered the corpse soldier's 2 arms in an instant. Then Xiao Chen turned upside down, crushed the corpse soldier's head with 1 foot, and flew out backwards. The corpse soldier was far less powerful than when he was wearing the armor. Now it was difficult for him to pose a threat to the cultivators. Dugu Sword Demon slashed out with a sword, which shattered the headless corpse soldier. The battle ended like this. Everyone understood in actual combat that if they wanted to kill the Yin soldiers, they had to break through their armor, otherwise they would not be able to defeat them. The scene was silent, and everyone's faces were not very good looking. After all, everyone worked together to kill a Yin soldier, and when they entered the dead city, they saw hundreds of Yin soldiers and heavenly soldiers. If these people all took action to deal with them, the consequences would be disastrous. Coupled with the evil ghosts that appear from time to time, and some even more terrifying giant ominous spirits, their situation is too dangerous. After all, there are too many ominous creatures in the dead city, and the Yin soldiers are far from being the most terrifying threat. The many unknown ominous spirits are what they fear most. Why do Yin soldiers have life, but once the armor leaves their bodies, they will die quickly and turn into evil spirits? A cultivator raised a question, which was also the puzzle of everyone present. It can be seen that this ancient city has existed for endless years, and those Yin soldiers may have also experienced endless years. The reason why they lived forever should be the reason for those armors, which kept their bodies in the same state as before. Someone made such a conjecture, although it may not be correct, but it has some reason, which makes some of them can't help but have some thoughts, whether they want to snatch a set of Yin soldier armor, or directly collect the broken ancient armor on the ground. However, before everyone was allowed to think too much, at this moment the earth suddenly made a rumbling sound and trembled violently. A gust of wind blew violently, and the nearby buildings trembled. The fierce aura surged, and a deep roar was like thunder roaring, which made people's souls tremble. Without any hesitation, the young cultivators rushed into an alley together and quickly evacuated the ancient street. Just away from that area, I felt a huge ominous thing rushing there, and the area shook violently, as if an earthquake had occurred. This is much more powerful than Yin soldiers, and we don't know how many unknown and terrifying monsters there are. Even if God enters this ancient city, it is unknown whether he can get out alive. A cultivator sighed in fear, he was already a little desperate. The mysterious woman in the depths of the colorful mist, with a voice as beautiful as the sound of heaven, said to everyone, no matter what kind of danger occurs, don't try to hide in the ancient house. Everyone nodded, because many people hid in and never came out again. But Xiao Chen's feelings are even more different. He has personally witnessed a fairy who was enshrined in the legend, but became the master of a certain dead house. He felt that the mysterious woman in the colorful mist seemed to have discovered such a secret. Ah! A shrill howling sound rang out above the heads of the crowd, and the 3 skeleton birds quickly swooped down towards the crowd. They all had skinny bodies and giant bird wings, looking ferocious and ferocious. HMPH, it's these ghosts again. Dugu Sword Demon snorted coldly, the iron sword soared up to the sky, and the space distorted, as if it was about to collapse. A field, drawn by him with great power shrouded upwards, emitting powerful energy fluctuations, covering the 2 skeleton birds in an instant, and then the sound of bone shattering came out, ghost feathers flew all over the sky, and the shattered skeleton bones fell down. It is not difficult to see from it that Dugu Sword Demon is so powerful and terrifying that Lu Mu, who is next to him, thinks he is not his opponent. The other skeleton bird was caught by the huge bergamot hand transformed by the monk Yijun and crushed to the ground. The 3 skeleton birds were wiped out, but the mysterious woman in the colorful mist sighed helplessly, I'm afraid we are in danger. Everyone was vigilant. When the 3 skeleton birds attacked them just now, they seemed to whistle into the distance first, which should be calling for helpers. Everyone quickly rushed to another alley, away from that area, but it was still too late after all, it was too late. Gusts of sinister wind blew from the high sky, and the bone-piercing chill enveloped everyone. A large number of skeleton birds above the blood-colored sky, like dark clouds, enveloped a large area, at least there were thousands of them. How is this still playing? Even if this many ominous spirits fell down, they could drown everyone, and every one of them was extremely vicious. It's over, we are dead. A cultivator was desperate, and finally rushed into an ancient house next to him. However, as soon as he rushed in, there was a scream, and then the sound of cracking, crunching, bones came out, as if a murderous animal was gnawing on the bones. Everyone's face changed suddenly, and no one dared to rush into the surrounding ancient houses. The cultivators rushed forward quickly, wanting to stay away from the threat of death coming from the sky. However, even the flying spirits and spellcasters found it futile. Those skeleton birds were too fast, blowing out bursts of piercing wind, quickly outflanking them and blocking their way. The sky is full of shadows, the sky is full of dark wind, and the shrill whistling sound makes the scalp numb and the back feel chilly. King Qin Guang, King Yan Luo, and King Samsara grabbed Xiao Chen's clothes and pointed to the bloody river in front of him, and then the 3 of them, Zilawala, directly dismantled themselves on the street, turning into a piece of bone, and the 3 guys began to pretend to be dead. Do you want to jump into the blood river? Xiao Chen said to himself, knowing without thinking, the blood river is definitely not a good place, maybe there will be more vicious ghosts inside. However, there is really no way right now, so I can only rush there first. The skeleton birds swooped down, and everyone began to be attacked, and ghostly death lights spewed out from their mouths, shooting towards everyone. At this moment, everyone has to show the strongest unique skills, otherwise, if they are negligent, they may die here completely. The time god of the woman in the colorful fog made a move, and the skeleton birds in the air were frozen, and the cultivators below shot out brilliant rays of light, tearing apart those immobile monsters. Then Dugu Sword Demon's sword light shot up into the sky, and an invisible field also enveloped those ghosts. The sound of bones cracking kept coming out, and the bones kept falling down. Xiao Chen's god-killing Sanshou, Lu Emu's space law, and Monk Yijun's great Buddhist supernatural powers were also displayed. The blazing light continued to sweep into the air, and the skeleton birds fell one after another. However, there are too many such monsters to kill. Several people were hit by their death light, leaving terrifying wounds on their bodies. Everyone retreated while fighting, and gradually rushed towards the blood river not far away. The rushing river of blood was extremely stench, the blood mist filled the air, and the stench of rotting corpses floated into everyone's noses, it really made people want to vomit even the overnight meal. Where can I escape if I don't jump off? A seriously injured cultivator couldn't hold on any longer, and was the first to jump into the rushing river of blood, but something horrifying happened. Just as he fell into the river, a huge shadow rushed towards the blood river. A ghost claw the size of a mill grabbed the cultivator, cut him off by the middle of the river, and then sank into the blood river. This is really an extremely frightening scene, Everyone felt fear. This scene is too scary. I didn't see what it was at all, I only saw the huge ghost claws that have been stalking. The dead city is really terrifying. Gusts of wind blew in the sky, and thousands of skeleton birds were still swooping down to attack everyone, but no one dared to jump into the blood river. At this moment, even Xiao Chen, Lu Mu, and Dugu Sword Demon have been injured, and if Yan Qingcheng and Lu Rian were not protected by the woman in the colorful mist, they would have died for a long time. Xiao Chen didn't know why a feeling of déjà vu surged up for that mysterious woman who could display the divine law of time, but at the moment he couldn't allow him to think too much. The evil ghost who could fly in the air put him on the verge of danger. In this situation, his slaughtering Sancho became more and more proficient, and he exerted terrifying power. The blazing divine light continued to tear into the air, and the broken corpses of the skeleton bird had scattered a large area around him. Boom, boom, boom. The ground was trembling, the buildings near the blood river were shaking, and a giant in the distance was walking towards here, casting a huge shadow, and the ground trembled with every step. This is really a frightening giant monster. It is 30 meters high. The human body is covered with white bone scales. Only one skull is not covered with scales. A layer of dry skin clings to the skull. The sparse yellow hair swaying in the wind on the dry skin on the top of the head. Two blood-red rays of light shine through the deep-set skull eye sockets, making it look extremely ferocious. And at the end of his spine, there is also a huge tail more than 10 meters long, also covered with bone scales, like a huge crocodile tail. As he walked, the ground shook violently, and the ominous aura came over the sky. Some nearby skeleton birds were startled and flew high into the sky. For Xiao Chen and the others, this is really a leaky house and continuous night rain. Thousands of skeleton birds had already put them in a desperate situation, and the approach of such a huge ominous ghost made it even more impossible for them to survive. Damn it! The conceited Dugu Sword Demon couldn't help scolding his mother, because he felt a sense of fear in his heart. He felt that death was approaching, and now it seemed that there was really no way out. Dead. I can't live anymore. Someone has already lamented. Indeed, in this situation, it is really hopeless. When killing the skeleton birds that kept swooping down, Xiao Chen still watched all this calmly. Facing death, he didn't feel the fear he should have, but he regretted not being able to go to the longevity continent. Are you going to die in the ancient city like this? Somewhat regrettable and unwilling. The ground was trembling violently, the 30-meter-high devil had already walked over, a huge shadow was cast on the ground, he stomped towards everyone with a ferocious face. Roar! Suddenly, the roar of the dragon shook the sky, and a dazzling golden light flashed in the air. Chapter 99 Purple Dragon King. In the center of the ancient city, the savage dragons who were attacking the sacred monument seemed to have discovered the abnormality in this area. A lion king dragon with golden lights all over its body rushed over, and opened its mouth in the distance to spray out a large golden light. The blazing light made the cultivators unable to open their eyes. There was a shrill ghost howling, and hundreds of skeleton birds shattered their bodies in the air, and then fell down. Ghost feathers fluttered and danced all over the sky. Facing the Lion King dragon in the king's blood of the dragon clan, all the skeleton birds flew away in shock, and the 30-meter-high devil was also suppressed and stopped in its tracks. The Lion King dragon roared again, and the golden light rain covered the sky and covered the tall devil, like a series of indestructible sword lights, which made the huge ghost have to retreat quickly to avoid it. However, Lion King Dragon didn't seem to intend to let him go, and suddenly swooped down. A huge golden light tore through the void like lightning. Everyone felt a blur in front of their eyes, and then heard a loud plop. The waves in the blood river surged into the sky, and the huge devil was swept into the blood river by the Lion King Dragon. Amidst the shrill howls of ghosts, the blood river seemed to be boiling. The devil was struggling violently. It seemed that a fierce spirit was pulling his huge body to sink to the bottom of the river. The waves of blood surged and finally calmed down. The Lion King Dragon glanced coldly at the young cultivators in the air, but it did not kill after all. Its main purpose of rushing here was to kill the evil spirits. In the end, the majestic Lion King Dragon flashed bright golden light and ran towards the center of the ancient city in the air. Not far away, the three skeletons slowly began to assemble their own skeletons, moving their joints. The surviving cultivators survived the desperate situation like a dream, which filled everyone with joy. However, their smiles that hadn't bloomed in the future froze again in an instant, because a tragic and fierce aura approached here again. King Qin Guang, King Yan Luo, and King Reincarnation were moving to the extreme at this moment. Zilawala assembled the skeleton, and rushed to Xiao Chen's side after a few strokes. In the distance, more than 50 Yin soldiers in ancient battle armor are approaching this area step by step. Although the ancient bronze spears and iron daggers in their hands are rusty, they contain a murderous aura, as if facing the Dragon King and vowing to slaughter. And behind the Yin soldiers, there are 50 heavenly soldiers. They are also wearing ancient battle armor, giving people a sense of infinite vicissitudes, like ancient fossils, with the same killing intent. Everyone didn't know how powerful the heavenly soldiers were, but they had already experienced the strength of the Yin soldiers, and now that so many Yin soldiers and heavenly soldiers were coming together, they couldn't compete at all. Moreover, the eyes of these heavenly soldiers and Yin soldiers are very clear, which shows that their minds are very clear, which is far from comparable to that of the Yin soldiers they killed earlier. It is very possible that any one of these heavenly soldiers and Yin soldiers can wipe them out. Xiao Chen felt emotional. This is really a dead city. If even the gods are deeply trapped in it, they may not be able to rush out smoothly. Run away, someone shouted, and everyone rushed forward along the ancient street. Facing so many heavenly soldiers and dark soldiers, fighting against them would be like committing suicide. Not only the heavenly soldiers and Yin soldiers are approaching, but also the skeleton birds that were scattered by the Lion King Dragon are also gathering and flying towards this area again. Even curse masters and spirit men have to fly at low altitude, otherwise what awaits them will be the attack of hundreds of skeleton birds. Xiao Chen and others were running on the ancient streets. At this moment, it was really a life and death escape. Although the Yin soldiers and the heavenly soldiers were not walking fast, they seemed to have the magical power of shrinking the ground to an inch, and they were getting closer and closer to them. There are more and more skeleton birds in the sky, hundreds of them have gathered, and they attacked Xiao Chen and the others again. At the same time, evil spirits shrouded in black mist burst out of the alleys from time to time. I don't know how powerful they are, but they all gathered together and chased Xiao Chen and others. In the central area, the sacred monument was shaking violently, and the entire ancient city was shaking slightly. At this time, the gates of many ancient houses also began to creak. This was a very bad signal. It seemed that the ominous creatures who had been silent in the ancient houses were finally about to appear. At the same time, there were trembling sounds from the wide street in the distance, as if there were many huge ominous ghosts running. At this moment, the evil spirits in the ancient city were soaring, the atmosphere of death was pervasive, and all the evil spirits became restless. Xiao Chen and the others felt that they were in a desperate situation. If this continues, wherever they can escape, they will be killed in a short time. There was an immature dragon chant. That's right, it was immature, it was obviously a little dragon whistling. With a flash of purple brilliance, a little dragon more than 1 meter long rushed over, surrounded by purple clouds. It looked very much like the legendary Qilin beast. It has a body like a deer and a horse, with wolf hooves and dragon scale skin, but it is also obviously different from the legendary unicorn. Its tail is a crocodile-like god tail, with brilliant purple light and gorgeous scales. The purple and gold horns on its head resemble deer antlers, and its head is very much like the legendary Zulong. It turned out to be the Purple Dragon King. Many cultivators at the scene had seen it before, and Yan Qingcheng and Kai Luo, Wang Tong and others even ambushed this companion Dragon King, but failed in the end. Although the young Purple Dragon King is only more than 1 meter long, it exudes a powerful dragon aura, and has the coercion of a beast king. It looked at the crowd vigilantly, then cheerfully rushed towards the mysterious woman in the colorful mist, and rubbed against the mysterious woman affectionately. This result stunned everyone, and the Purple Dragon King was subdued. This is the first Dragon King found on Long Island, and it may also be the first companion Dragon King born, which means that it will be the most powerful opponent of the Little Ancestor Dragon, and may even replace the Little Ancestor Dragon. If it can grow up smoothly, it will be a terrifying existence that makes even the gods tremble. The young Purple Dragon King turned and ran forward, as if he was leading the way for the mysterious woman in the colorful mist. Everyone, come with me. The mysterious woman's voice sounded like heaven, and she followed her first. The evil spirits and evil spirits behind were still chasing after them, and the skeleton birds in the air seemed to have scruples after seeing the young companion Dragon King. They were afraid of attracting the adult savage dragons behind the little Dragon King. The Yin soldiers and the heavenly soldiers did not stop, and those evil spirits filled with black mist were even more unscrupulous, and they were also approaching quickly. The Purple Dragon King turned around suddenly, with purple divine flames dancing all over his body, and roared at the fierce spirit behind him. Although he looked immature when he chanted softly, but when he was angry, it was deafening like thunder, resounding through the heaven and earth, and it really slowed down those evil spirits in an instant. The appearance of the Purple Dragon King seemed to evoke some ancient memories of them. People discovered that the young Purple Dragon King actually led them to the area of the sacred monument. As a result, many evil spirits stopped in their tracks, and only the yin soldiers and the heavenly soldiers chased them down leisurely. Has this Dragon King ever believed it? Someone asked. The young Zilong King turned his head and let out a low growl, glaring at the cultivator, with a very psychic and humane expression. This made Xiao Chen couldn't help calling KK, isn't that cute little beast still sleeping soundly now? Hope it doesn't come as a surprise. Now we don't believe it has other ways of life. Someone retorted. You just follow along, it won't harm us. The voice of the woman in the colorful mist was very soft, and as she moved forward like flying, she gently stroked the dragon horn of the purple Dragon King. How did you tame it? Someone finally couldn't help asking this question. You have to know how many people were trying to get the purple Dragon King back then, but all of them failed. The mysterious woman said in amazement. I never tamed it, I only regarded it as a friend, so when I was outside in the mountains and forests, it often appeared beside me. But I didn't expect it to enter the ancient city, and now it seems to be leading us. The cultivators looked at each other when they heard the words. It was really enviable that the mysterious woman's indifferent heart had won the trust of the purple Dragon King. It's just that some people don't believe that if they didn't come for the Dragon King, why did they enter Dragon Island? Not long ago, why did you always fight and kill each other, especially you Dugu Sword Demon is too murderous, if I hadn't blocked you several times, you would have killed more people. The mysterious woman had a lot of opinions on Dugu Sword Demon. These words can't help but make other cultivators surprised. Is this woman really so pure and kind? Is she really a noble woman? Although they have doubts, it is impossible to think too much, and now the only thing that matters is escape. Dugu Sword Demon just responded with a cold snort. Xiao Chen felt more and more familiar with the mysterious woman, but he just couldn't remember where he had seen it. On Long Island, he had indeed glimpsed quite a few female cultivators, and wondered if it was one of them. While talking, everyone has been led to the area near the stele by the young purple Dragon King. Of course, the so-called nearby refers to the area where the energy light cannot be affected. The light flickers ahead, the Buddha's body, the brass gossip, etc. are still bombarding the stele, and there are many savage dragons in the sky. Chapter 100 The Heavenly Map emerges. The young purple dragon is the legendary companion Dragon King, and it must be by his side. Even if those dragons find them, they will not kill them. Everyone comforts themselves like this. The yin soldiers and the heavenly soldiers in the rear seemed to be taboo, they didn't want to approach here, and watched from afar. With a deep roar, the purple Dragon King bypassed the area near the sacred monument and went upstream along the blood river. This river of blood, which smells like corpses, is really winding and winding. Boom! With a loud bang, the divine steel shot into the sky, the golden halberd and the black iron seal were knocked out. Xiao Chen was shocked, because they came to the back side of the divine steel when the divine steel was shining brightly, and he vaguely saw some patterns in the divine light. His mood was extremely excited. It was the continuation of the heaven-sent chi refining map, and it was a supplementary part of the Zongong that he had always dreamed of. The divine monument on Long Island was indeed closely related to the ancient monument on the Yellow River in Yongzhen. Xiao Chen, why are you in a daze? Why don't you leave quickly? Seeing Xiao Chen standing still in a daze, Lu Mu couldn't help tugging at his skirt. You guys go first, I'll follow. Xiao Chen looked dazed. He was completely attracted by the vague picture of refining chi from heaven. Are you crazy? Lu Mu pushed Xiao Chen hard. The Dugu Sword Demon next to him sneered and said, HMPH, do you want to write down the chi refining map on the ancient stele? I advise you to give up your determination. No one who has practiced the chi refining map on the ancient Long Island stele will be able to survive in the end. Monk Yijun also came over when he heard the sound, and said, Xiao Chen, don't memorize the chi refining diagram. It is a practice that cannot be practiced. It is said that some people have obtained the residual diagram in the past, but all those who practiced this diagram died tragically. It's okay, you guys go first. Xiao Chen stared at the ancient god tablet closely as if possessed by a demon, but the light had faded away, and those patterns had disappeared. At this moment, there was an exclamation from the front, as if the purple Dragon King had led everyone to a strange place. Lu Mu and Monk Yijun looked at each other, and they carried Xiao Chen forward together, and it was obvious that they were worried about Xiao Chen's problems. But at this time, the horn of the ancestral dragon, the body of the Buddha, the brass gossip, and the spells of many savage dragons blasted at the stele again, and brilliant light rushed from the ancient stele, and the sky map reappeared. This time, two terrifying rays of light shot out from Xiao Chen's eyes, as if they were real. His mind seemed to rush out of his body with the two rays of light. At this moment, he felt a vast, vicissitudes, and long-lasting breath rushing towards him. An ancient stone carving was deeply imprinted in his mind. That's right, that's the follow-up map of the exercises he practiced. What's more, he found 4 Sancho in the overlapping and complex engravings, which are mysterious killing styles. Although there are only 4 strokes, the impact on Xiao Chen was too great. It is impossible for Xiao Chen to digest and absorb the following heaven-sent chi refining map in such a short period of time, so he can only memorize it firmly in his mind. However, Siji Sancho felt déjà vu, and after careful identification, he found that he seemed to have seen a few claws before. The first of the 4G Sancho is very similar to the Killing God Sancho, but it is much more profound than the Killing God Sancho. The more he thought about it, the more frightened Xiao Chen became. Compared with the first inscription on the stele, the God-killing Sancho found near the guardrail of the stele earlier is completely incomparable, and the mystery in it is indescribable. Later, Xiao Chen discovered that the 4 Sancho on the stele could find some shadows in the killing style recorded on the guardrail of the stele. The second movement in Siji Sancho is somewhat similar to the Niluan Sanchi, the third movement in Siji Sancho is somewhat similar to 8 demon suppressing techniques, and the fourth movement is somewhat similar to cracking 5 kills. The 4 records of Sancho on the ancient god tablet are only 4 hand gestures, but such a simple engraving can highly summarize the endless changes. Perhaps this is the so-called great simplicity. The legendary 3 stances of reversing chaos, 8 demon suppressing techniques, cracking 5 kills, etc. can all be evolved from one Sancho, and they are many times more profound and sublime than it. From the road to simplicity, from the road to simplicity. Xiao Chen whispered these 4 words repeatedly, and he named the last 4 Sancho: killing God, reversing chaos, suppressing demons, and cracking. What are you talking to yourself? Lu Mu and Monk Yijun, who were carrying him forward, couldn't help shaking him vigorously when they saw that he was in a trance. Xiao Chen woke up from that illusory state, his excited mood gradually calmed down, and said, "I'm fine." Only then did Lu Mu and Monk Yijun let him go. What's going on there? Xiao Chen looked at the front in amazement. They were already more than 100 meters behind, and the front was full of blood. The Purple Dragon King led us here, maybe there is really a way out. In this area, there are not many ancient buildings. The vicinity of the Blood River is full of yin, and the blood mist is floating. There seems to be an ancient high platform full of oppression in the bloody light in front of it. Xiao Chen and the others rushed over quickly, and found that it turned out to be an ancient altar, which was entirely made of black boulders, with a height of 20 meters, full of the vicissitudes of time. Around it, there are many stone tablets more than 2 meters high, and the bloody light that soars into the sky is emitted by those stone tablets, as if protecting the ancient altar. The river of blood circled the ancient altar before flowing into the distance. It seems that the light of blood is also closely related to the river of blood, making people wonder whether this is the legendary blood sacrifice. Could it be said that the blood river flows exclusively for the ancient altar? Almost all the surviving cultivators in the ancient city fled here, but now there are no more than 17 or 8 people, and all the others are dead. Here Xiao Chen saw Kai Luo, the genius illusion magician Kai Luo, the enemy genius, but neither of them did anything, and it was really inappropriate to resolve their personal grievances now. The Purple Dragon King let out a low growl, and then jumped up, flew over the blood river, stepped over the stone steel guardrail, rushed into the blood light, and appeared in front of the ancient altar. A dozen cultivators looked at each other. Could they leave the dead city by rushing to the altar? This seems unlikely. However, they are no longer allowed to think too much, because there are tremors in the distance. The heavenly soldiers and yin soldiers bypassed the sacred monument and followed here, and more evil spirits also rushed over, and the sky was densely covered with skeleton birds. What's more, many ancient houses are no longer peaceful, and there are bursts of shrill roars, which are definitely super ominous spirits. The cultivators no longer hesitated. Since there was no way out, they might as well follow the Purple Dragon King to have a try. More than a dozen people leapt across the sea of blood one after another, and stepped over the guardrail of the stone monument. Along the ancient stone steps full of the breath of time, everyone walked towards the altar together with the Purple Dragon King. On the stone platform that has gone through endless wind and frost, not only pictures of the sun, moon and stars, but also many pictures of people from the ancient times are engraved, but nothing can be deduced at all. When they walked to the altar, everyone found many bloody engravings of savage dragons as sacrifices, which made the Zilong king who was on it very angry and kept growling. At this time, a large group of evil spirits rushed to the ancient altar. The black mist billowed, and a tragic and ominous aura filled the air. The sky was also like dark clouds. Not only were there skeleton birds, but also many unidentified flying ominous spirits. They all stared fiercely at the ancient altar, but did not attack everyone for the time being. "What's going on? I don't feel right," someone said in surprise. "These evil spirits are besieging us, they won't treat us as sacrifices, do they want to sacrifice us alive?" The ominous spirits gathered more and more, and finally they all let out howling noises, making the area tremble continuously. The purple dragon king also seemed to be a little anxious. He kept looking up and watching. Through the gap between the ominous spirits floating in the air, he could see a blood sun was about to hang directly above the ancient city. As the blood day gradually approached the center point, the blood-colored light of the ancient altar shone fiercely. This altar, which existed for an unknown amount of time, seemed to have life, and was frantically absorbing the river of blood surrounding it, and the dazzling light rushed straight up. The ominous spirits surrounding here were in chaos, screaming continuously, as if they were paying attention to the occurrence of a living sacrifice. At this time, a group of buildings very close to the altar suddenly became chaotic, and there was a violent sound of shattering. The most magnificent old house among them collapsed, and the shrill howling sound was deafening. It seemed that a peerless ghost was born. Everyone was astonished. This was something that had never happened before entering the ancient city. Although many ancient houses were making abnormal noises at this stage, there was no precedent of them collapsing. Then a white light rushed out, and I saw a cute little fluffy animal rushing to the roof of another ancient house. The snow-white little animal blinked a pair of bright big eyes angrily, looked at the ruins, and made a babbling sound, which spread to everyone's ears. Roar! With the roar of Li Gui, the flying ominous spirit trembled in the shaking air, almost falling down. I saw a tall man, dressed in ancient clothes, crawling out from the ruins. Ah, how can it be? That is, everyone was shocked, because it was a headless angel who could make a sound, and he had golden wings, which meant that he was a legendary god. How could he be in the old house? And lost his head? However, if you feel carefully, you can find that there is no trace of holiness in him at this moment, and the whole body is full of eerie evil spirit. The headless golden-winged angel pounced on the little snow-white beast, and instantly shattered the old house, causing endless smoke and dust to rise there. The little beast's movements seemed to be reaching its limit, and the headless golden wing couldn't catch it. Afterwards, it rushed into another ancient house, followed by the headless angel. There are super-powerful ominous spirits in every ancient house. As several ancient houses collapsed, several ominous spirits in ancient clothes rushed out. I can't see anything special about them, but the terrifying power is shocking, much stronger than those ominous spirits that everyone encountered before. It's really unbelievable that a small snow-white beast that looks very cute can cause such a big commotion, and it can even get out of the way after rushing into several ancient houses. KK, Xiao Chen screamed. He had already recognized KK, but he never thought that the little beast would enter the ancient city. Some people had seen this little beast by Xiao Chen's side before, and immediately recalled it, but they never thought that this little beast was so miraculous. You must know that many cultivators entered the ancient house before and never came out again, and became the rations of evil spirits, but this cute little beast rushed in again and again, which made people speechless. It seems that not only is it not afraid, but it also seems to be exasperated. It is really cute and magical to the extreme. Hearing Xiao Chen's call, KK looked over with her big eyes blinking, and then ran happily as if meeting a relative, stepping past one old house after another along the way. This time it was really lively. The headless golden-winged angels and other ominous spirits in the rear pursued violently, constantly breaking down the ancient haunted house, and the area was full of smoke and dust. Everyone was completely stunned. This little beast, is it too arrogant, or too cute and innocent? To actually rush over so indifferently and make such a big commotion, it's really speechless. While Xiao Chen was nervous and worried about KK, he also secretly underestimated in his heart. Could the people behind the golden-winged angels be the Immortals back then? After all, he had recognized someone before. Although these people were unfamiliar faces, there was no guarantee that they would not have similar identities. Boom! The ancient houses collapsed one after another, and KK was almost caught by a fierce spirit. Xiao Chen was extremely nervous, and finally couldn't help but jumped out of the altar, wanting to meet KK. Don't go. Lu Mu and the woman in the colorful mist shot at the same time. The power of the law of space and the god of time stopped Xiao Chen. Fortunately, Kiki is fine. Moreover, it still had time to wave its paws at the golden-winged angel angrily. In the end, Kiki turned into a white light with a whoosh, and flew across the air for dozens of meters, directly past the many evil spirits besieging the altar, and then jumped up again, crossed the blood river, and rushed to the ancient altar. Kiki is really amazing, her whole body is snow white, and her immaculate hair is shining with a crystal luster, as if carved out of soft and transparent chalcedony. Coupled with those big agile eyes, it is extremely cute, and it is really a little beast that is full of the wisdom of heaven and earth.